EOS Go presents EOS Radio, your first source for everything about the new blockchain Internet of Value. You'll hear from key contributors to EOS, including interviews with Block.one, dApp development teams, and block producers. You'll get community updates and answers to common questions, meetup information, opportunities to get involved in EOS, and much more. We're live every Monday at 6 p.m. EST, and now it's time for your hosts, Kev and Bluejays, in 3, 2, 1.
Are you able to hear me? Yep, you can probably hear me right now. Here we go. Welcome to another edition of EOS Radio. What am I doing here? EOS Radio? Is it EOS Radio? I have so many shows, I'm on.
Yeah, what are you on? Howard Stern last week, CNN every day.
Yeah, man.
EOS Radio, man. EOS Radio episode 5. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome, everybody. Kev,
Yep.
why don't you tell them who's on the show today?
We have a pretty good lineup, I would say. We have Jan Langheimer with EOSIndex. He's the one who created the EOSIndex website. That's the site that you can see any dApp that is building on EOS, and the project managers can submit the dApps themselves, or even community members can do that. And then also we have EOS.Cafe. They just announced their block producer candidacy. They also have one of the most interesting, I would say, ideas for how to get EOS out to the public. They're going to set up coffee shops and cafes and use the revenue to sort of link the blockchain world with the physical world. And then, of course, we have Thomas Cox, and he will be coming on for his second weekly Q&A with questions from the community. If you are in the chat, you also will have your questions answered as well, assuming he does what he did last week. So I'm excited. Looks like a good show, I would say.
Yeah, it looks like an amazing show. Let me get started. So EOS Go is a neutral community organization. We're not running for BP. We are here to inform and strengthen the EOS ecosystem. And up to and beyond the launch, we'll continue to bring value to the EOS ecosystem by bringing more of the same work which the EOS community has come to expect from us already. We're volunteers and we're self-funded at the moment, and that's how we're going to take it for now. So let's get rolling here. Maybe we'll get Jan to join.
Sure. And I'll add a little bit to that statement you just made. So a lot of folks have asked us about our funding, and that's why we said we're self-funded. We are just volunteers at this point. We are looking into business models and things of that nature to answer those questions. But we're just passionate fans of EOS, and we saw sort of so there's kind of a need in EOS for a neutral organization like ours, it seems, and we've heard a lot of great feedback about that. So thank you guys very much for all the feedback, and we will continue to do what we do. And if we can improve in any way, please let us know. And we do have Jan coming on here shortly.
Yeah, Jan, are you gone? Are you coming on?
Hang on one second here. Let's go over some of the news tonight. We have a lot of news to cover. It'll be later today, of course. We have breaking news about Scatter. So about 48 hours ago, a little bit less than that, Scatter opened up the ability to reserve identifications or IDs. So if you would like to reserve a name that means a lot to you on Scatter for the EOS ecosystem, you should go ahead and do that. You can reserve them now, and it's only been up for less than 48 hours, so there's still most of the names are available if you'd like to get into that. Also, you can reserve multiple names with the same MetaMask account, so it's not like you have to register all sorts of different MetaMask accounts. We are going to get into the FinLab $100 million venture capital fund for EOS. Is he on?
Not yet.
Okay, I'll keep on going. Then, of course, the version 2 of the white paper as well, the EOS white paper, released last Tuesday, last Tuesday, I believe it was. It became widely known, and we'll go over some of the changes that came in that white paper. We'll also talk about some of the growing concerns in the community about block producers and Dan's Q&A. Oh, hello there, Jan.
Hello. Nice to meet you too. How is everybody doing?
Doing very well. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I was really excited when you guys reached out.
Well, I mean, so early on you released EOSIndex, and it was far and away the best option to see what is building on EOS, and you just really did a great job with that site. So we share the same excitement of having you on here, and let's go ahead and start the interview. Do you have any? Let's do the who, what, where, why, when. Just sort of get a background about you, Jan. Where are you from, and what is your background?
So yeah, my name is Jan. I'm in my late 20s. I'm born and raised in Germany. 3 years ago, I moved to Switzerland, started working for a big American tech company. I transferred to Toronto around 2 years ago, and I went full-time on EOSIndex about 2 weeks ago. So that's exciting news. We will see what the future brings.
I like your style. I mean, that's what EOS Go, we do kind of the same thing. Hey, we have an opportunity here. Let's just jump in and see what happens kind of deal. What is your background before EOSIndex? Are you a computer engineer, a software engineer, or a coder?
I'm a coder, tech guy. I've been all over the place. I've built my first website around 15 years ago. Always been doing that on the side, sometimes full-time, sometimes just part-time, freelancing most of the time. I did some electronics. I worked for a company called Northrop Grumman for 3 years. And then I started traveling. I love traveling. I traveled around the world for a year, pretty much every day somewhere else. And after that, I studied for 2.5 years computer science. But I never finished that. I dropped out and went to Switzerland and started working.
Wow, sounds like you have a real passion just for going around the world and seeing where life takes you, kind of thing.
Absolutely. I've lived in 4 countries so far, and I hope there are going to come a few more.
Germany and Canada. Where else?
Switzerland and the US.
Okay, there you go.
Huh.
Should have quizzed me on that one. I would have failed.
And so EOSIndex, was it what caused you to create EOSIndex? What was the impetus for that?
Around October last year, the idea came to me that I was looking for projects and what is being built on EOS, and I had a hard time finding anything. So I started working on a foundation for something like EOSIndex, but because there were no real projects to list on there, my interest was kind of low. And then everything was so crazy with last year's all-time highs of Bitcoin and everything. And basically when things went south for Bitcoin and the whole crypto market, I started looking at that website again I started building. And yeah, I enjoyed building it. And at the beginning, I was like, yeah, it's just going to be like a little side project of mine, or you know how this is, and it's not going to get too much traction. But I finished it and posted it to the EOS Telegram group a couple times, and from there on it just snowballed, and someone made a YouTube video about it. I can see on Google Analytics it's getting posted all over the place.
How many projects are listed on there now?
There are, as of right now, 63.
Wow.
Whoa. Okay. That's pretty amazing. And so you've had a few things in the works too. About a lot of folks have talked about, and we've even received some of this information about how we should sort of prune down the projects that maybe don't meet a certain standard or this and that. But you're about open source. I mean, you say, well, you know what? If anyone wants to submit, they can, and the community can sort of decide for themselves what's important and what's not. Can you give us more of your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, definitely. So for now, I have not removed any projects that have been listed. There's no filter or registration check in place. Pretty much anyone who registers can submit a project and it will be live immediately. I think that will change over time. There are a few projects on there that have nothing to do with EOS. Haven't really given it any thought yet because it's not taking overhand. It's like 2-3 projects, I think, that either don't have a website or the website is not working or not providing any information, or one of those projects is just a shop and wants to get some traction on their website, I think. To be honest, about that, so far it's been quite all right, and I haven't given it too much thought. What I do want to implement in the future is some kind of official or verified badge, and talk to the community about how to handle this. For now, I think people are voting projects down that have nothing to do with EOS. That's one way to do it.
That's a good idea. You may for example, Kevin, for the BP portal thing, we have the 6 checkmark check. Maybe you can have something similar, right?
Yeah, I'm working a lot on in the background that you guys can't see on the website. I'm happy to announce that EOS is no longer a one-man show. It's now a two-man show. One of my old buddies from university is joining. And yeah, he's one of the most brilliant coders I know, and I'm happy to have him on board.
Congratulations. Yeah, you mean EOSIndex is now a two-man team, not EOS itself.
Oh, sorry. Of course.
You might have just scared a few people right there. But.
No, I'm not associated to EOS, the project itself in any way. Just a random guy trying to make sure that EOS is launching successfully in June and providing a website with a place to come to. And over the next couple of weeks, I'm planning on introducing a few new features. I want to separate the established projects that have a roadmap, a team, and everything set up. And I want to separate the concepts that are just an idea or still in the finding phase. And then this I want to combine with a jobs portal, so people can offer job postings combined to this project, and users can just reply or send them their resume or offer any service around EOS. And those are the steps towards June, and after June we will see what will happen. I definitely have a few ideas. I'm looking into the block producer topic. Might set up a bare metal in Germany or Switzerland. I think there's nothing in that area yet. A broad distribution would be nice. And that is something I'm looking into. Funding, there is still a little bit the question. Yeah, but for now, I'm definitely all in on EOS and EOSIndex, and the next few weeks and months are going to be exciting for me, for you, and everyone who is interested in the EOS topic.
So with your buddy coming on board, you specifically have that jobs board that you're going to be working on, or is there other aspects of the site that you're going to be filling out? So
priority number one right now is the jobs platform, the jobs portal, to integrate this. And we want to get some tools out there for the community to use to get ready for the switch from the ERC20 token to the EOS blockchain token. We want to provide maybe a block explorer, just overall information that is useful for the community, and kind of like being the Swiss Army knife for EOS.
Oh, very good.
Cool.
And then I guess you can list your own project on EOSIndex.io.
Yeah. Yeah. It basically is already. The first project that is listed, I put EOSIndex in there.
Oh, there you go. Very good.
Nice. Yeah, well done. And so let's get into more. So you're kind of the guy who knows probably more than most people about the projects that are building on EOS and what could be successful on EOS, things of that nature. Where do you see dApp developers having good success with EOS. Let's get a little bit more outside EOSIndex itself. What do you, in terms of your grand vision of how EOS could play out? What do you see?
That's a great question. I think a lot of real estate, of course, finance, banking, and I hope that that's probably a couple years down the road, but I hope that a lot of like government things will be run on an app. And even if it is just voting for the next mayor or the next community lead, or like slowly implementing the technology and making, giving back the power to the people. And I think EOS is the perfect tool for that. It's not just a great, incredible piece of technology, but it is also, it has the potential to give the everyday person their actual vote and their actual rights back and the power.
Yeah, I think most of us would agree with that. That's well said. What kind of drew you into EOS itself originally?
What brought me to EOS?
Yeah, well, with all the other, I mean, Ethereum and all the other projects out there, and you're clearly a bright guy. And why was it EOS for you?
I've been following Dan's project for a while, and I started Ethereum mining around this time last year, and just have been crazy about the whole blockchain industry, following every project. And yeah, around last year, July. When did the ICO started? June, July, August, something like that. I just found this project, and I was I just liked the idea, and I kind of looked around for other things that do similar stuff, but nothing really with the same mission, with the same team. Like Dan has a proven track record, and Ethereum has the problem with the miners being there and not wanting to accept the Casper system, or I'm not like too familiar with what's going on over there, but I think they have some political issues that EOS does not have, and
yeah, good insights. I think that we here in this project have tried to fix a lot of the shortcomings of other projects as well too, especially with the actual implementations already delivered and free in the wild, like Steemit and BitShares.
Yeah.
So thanks, Jan. Is there anything else that you would like us to know for your projects? Anything coming up? Anything that you're getting involved in? Anything else?
Check out my Telegram channel or the Twitter account. Follow us there. Make sure to always check back to the EOSIndex website and leave a comment. And if you have any questions for me, just reach out. Probably the best would be Telegram or...
What is your Telegram channel name?
It's just EOSIndex. I can post a link somehow if that is possible.
Yeah, if you post it in the Telegram chat too, we can share it with the...
Yes, let me do that right now. Number one, this is Telegram, and this is Twitter. Oh, no, sorry, that was Reddit. This is Telegram. You can also find this on EOSIndex.io. On the main page, there's a little about icon on the top left corner. And would be happy to hear from you guys. Any questions from you guys, or?
I'm kind of curious about, so with the projects that are, what are you most excited about that you've seen so far? I guess we should also ask, because this is I'm personally a big Scatter fan. I love Carmel. We've talked to both of those guys on the show here. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Last week I went to the meetup here in Toronto, and Irio had a talk, And that sounded very, very promising. The healthcare industry and what their plans are to basically put everything on the blockchain, that sounded really, really cool. And I think that has a lot of potential.
Yeah, speaking of Irio, we have actually interviewed them, and we will be placing their interview. The interview is in the episode, but we will be cutting a special short, just encapsulated version of just their interview to be posted very soon. So that should be coinciding, I think, with a planned event that they have in a couple days. So we can get that out there.
Yeah, Irio, I kind of agree with you too. Irio took me by surprise. I mean, I didn't know much about their project, but they have such a huge vision and such an amazing scope. And if they're able to pull it off, it'd be amazing. I'm kind of.
I agree. I agree.
And you went to the meetup in Toronto, is that right?
Right now I'm located in Toronto. Okay. That will probably change after the summer. We will see. We will see.
Sounds like that's your style, I would say.
I kind of would like to buy an old school bus and drive through Canada and explore Canada and live in the school bus, have like my office in there, and that would be cool.
You've got a cool style. You kind of remind us of another friend of ours, Paul Atreides. A lot of folks know him from the chat from EOS, and he does a similar style. He lives, out in the west coast of the United States, and he just loves going out into the wild, I guess you could say. So don't move into a school bus somewhere in the middle of nowhere, like that movie. But
yeah. No. And one more thing. I'm starting to. Or I want to start documenting in a blog the progress of the project, and I was wondering if maybe someone who is viewing right now is interested in helping me write the articles. I'm a tech guy. I can code. I can do techie stuff, but English isn't my first language, and if just someone wants to join the team and do social media PR and write a blog once a week about what we're doing and EOS is doing, please reach out to me.
Oh, that's good. So if anybody, you can also post in the opportunities Telegram as well too. So if anyone's willing to help Jan on his project, be a blogger, just reach out to him.
Thank you.
It can be difficult keeping up with those social networks, so that would be a big example. Yeah, cool. Yeah, we love your project. Thank you for coming on, and I'm looking forward to the verified feature. That'll help a lot of folks, and they can sort by that. And if you need help putting the criteria together, well, I have some experience doing that. We all do with the Block Producer Report, the candidates report. So let us know if we can help you in any way as well.
Perfect, for sure. I will definitely reach out. I'm also working on different filter or sorting options to. I'm not gonna say too much. Just check back and maybe around next week, and there are small changes coming and big changes coming over the next few weeks.
Nice.
Excellent.
Okay, you're reminding me of Scatter with Nathan James. He loves doing the little teas. Maybe you can put a little airplane on this website or something like that. I'm just kidding. Yeah. We don't want to start the hype train, but I'm excited to keep an eye on it. Let us know if we can help you get the word out or anything. So EOSIndex is just a great project, and this is something that people ask us about too. And we just say, hey, EOSIndex is already covering the dApps that are coming on EOS, and everybody wants to know about them. So yeah, keep up the good work.
Cool. When are we going to see EOS Go on there?
Well, we're working towards that. We will hopefully have an announcement here in the next few weeks, but we'll see what comes out. Yeah.
Perfect. Looking forward to it.
All these hints dropping everywhere, Yeah.
Thanks, Jan. Appreciate your time. Enjoy Toronto.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and see you around.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, Jan.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Yeah, Kevin, that's a good point. When are we going to get on EOSIndex? We should probably fill out an entry soon.
I think we probably should. I mean, we probably undersell ourselves a little bit here about, we do a show and we have our forums and we have our website is now, it's a skeleton version, but it's up there and it's still in progress. But yeah, I guess we are we belong on there too. Why not, right? I know I've seen block producers on there, and why not? I see Saeed is now joining us with EOS
Hey
Cafe.
guys.
Hey man, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys today?
Good.
Hey Saeed, how you doing?
Good, good.
And Steam Sharks is here. Is that Troy?
Yeah, Troy.
Hey Troy, nice to meet you. I'm Kevin.
Great to meet you. Great to meet you both. Thanks for the opportunity to come on the show and talk about our project.
Yeah, I just saw your intro post. It just came out a little bit ago, I believe, 30 minutes ago or so, hour ago, and we'll share that in the chat. That was very well done. Even Katie was like, "Wow, that was really impressive post." And you know how Katie, she's a great writer, so well done there as well. So, yeah, we'd love to learn more about you guys, the who, what, where, why, when, what drives you, and I guess Troy, what's your background? What should we know?
Well, background, I'm a farmer actually from Saskatchewan, and but as how I came along to Dan's blockchains was, you know, I got interested in cryptocurrency right from the beginning. I was kind of interested, but I thought it was kind of a bubble and stuff, and I was more a gold guy. But anyway, I came across this guy named Daniel Larimer and BitShares, and right from the get-go, he was, you know, his vision is to, you know, to build freedom, build it on a blockchain, try to create ways that people can have more freedom through the blockchain. And I got pretty excited about that. And so I got into BitShares, and then I got into Steam, and you know, Dan's blockchains just work, plain and simple. Mm-hmm. So when I got really excited about EOS and what we can do with that for all sorts of things, all sorts of applications to help the world make it a better place in a peaceful way, voluntary way. And that's really cool to me. And fortunately, it's cool to a lot of other people that are attracted to this project.
And most of all, he's a coffee lover, as we all are on this project.
Man, you are speaking my language now. Gosh.
Yeah, as far as drugs go, it's probably the best drug. Arguably, I've read a post where it actually helped spur the Industrial Revolution in you know, England and Scotland or whatever. Well, maybe not England and Scotland. Anyway, but whatever. I read that somewhere.
Was that caffeine that spurred the
caffeine?
Revolution?
Yeah, allegedly, but that's just somebody's opinion on the internet, so I shouldn't have said it here. But
yeah, I mean, international productivity. I mean, we'd still be living in caves if it weren't for coffee, right? I mean, that's,
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a great shirt, man. It says there's a 100% chance of coffee today on my shirt. It's like a little rain, but it's beautiful. So obviously I'm a fan of your style, and this is a curious project because you guys are merging kind of the physical world and the blockchain world. You're looking to set up cafes. We'd love to hear more about the whole premise of the project, how it came about, and what exactly is going on.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, from the start, our vision was to build, like, the first idea that we had was how can we actually increase user adoption of EOS? Or first of all, personally, I've been thinking about this more generally as like cryptocurrency. I've seen other cryptocurrencies be like Litecoin, for example, has been trying to allow people to pay with it in the LitePay. So one of the best ways to increase user adoption in the physical world is allow people to use it in the physical world. Mm-hmm. So that's where we thought of the idea. Why don't we allow people to use their own EOS for something that a lot of people do every single day? Coffee. It's such a small thing, but it's such a pivotal point in people's lives, right? So that's where the idea of coffee came from. And then we thought about, hey, like if we build these places, these are hacker spaces. These are places where we can actively promote the EOS ecosystem. And that's exactly where the EOS.Cafe DAC idea began.
Could you get a sandwich too? Or?
Oh, definitely. So see, cafes are not limited. Like cafes are not just a coffee shop. Cafes can have like an internet cafe section. They could be like a hostel. They could have accommodation. But the central part is the coffee, and then you can build around that. You could have conference spaces for EOS-related projects, but we want to keep it very EOS-centric, but allow the whole general public to get involved in the EOS ecosystem and also promote EOS developers, obviously, who are contributing actively to dApp development.
So this is like a meetup space everywhere where you have a EOS.Cafe location.
Yes,
Right.
powered by coffee. It's like a meetup space powered by coffee.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd say we're building out in the on the internet, trying to get as many members as possible. And basically, what's going to happen is different cities will be competing for the first EOS.Cafe location, based on, like, people will just put worker proposals basically and say, okay, we want to build one here. We think that this is going to work out here. We have enough members that are interested in it, and we think it's going to work here. So there'll be a lot of different ideas to make this happen. When I first started it, I was like, okay, this is a little bit crazy, but then it's somehow the love people have for EOS, coupled with the idea that people actually are visualizing with us. They're visualizing with us. Yeah, why can't a DAC own a chain of coffee shops? Like, why not? Like, Starbucks exists. It has 27,000 locations. Why can't we have 27 locations in the most beautiful cities around the world, with kind of built around the EOS community, wherever they have the most membership? That's where the cafes will pop up, and it might happen sooner than it's going to happen a lot sooner than I first thought, because I didn't know if it was going to happen for sure. Now I'm fairly confident it's going to happen somewhere, not soon, but because there's so many ideas on the Discord. People are saying, no, why don't we do this? Or, I've already done this, and why don't we put the EOS.Cafe brand on it? So we have lots of different opportunities.
So
You're
Troy,
saying there's actual. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. So Troy, you're located in Saskatchewan, you said?
Yeah, I live in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, and I farm just north and northwest of Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan.
Awesome. And what about you, Syed?
I'm located in Calgary, Alberta. So we're pretty close by. Like, Troy comes down every now and then, but we actually met up in the at a meetup in Calgary, like a EOS Calgary meetup, and Troy was one of the organizers for that meetup. So that's how we initially met up and discussed.
Oh, I remember that Calgary meetup. That was one of the initial meetups that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just so pumped about EOS. I'm like, okay, I live in this small town of 30,000 people. I'm like, I don't think anybody's going to be that crazy about it here. So 6-hour drive away is Calgary. I'm like, okay, I love Calgary anyway, and I don't mind going there. And I'm like, okay, I should start a meetup there. And then, yeah, the first one, there was my son and 2 members. And then one of those members that showed up for the first one became co-organizer. His name's Frank, and he's an awesome guy. And then from there, the next 2 meetups, like that Frank really took the reins and promoted them. And we've had about 25 people on the next 2. And yeah, it's just, and people like, we really should have another one soon in the next week or 2, probably about 2 weeks. We'll have another one in Calgary, because yeah, the people want it. Like, they're constantly telegramming like, hey, when's the next meetup? So yeah, there's a hunger there for people. The interesting thing, not to get off topic, but the interesting thing about EOS meetups, if it's branded EOS Calgary or EOS London or whatever, it's branded EOS. You get a lot more programmers and IT people at it, because there's not a lot of hype like there is around Bitcoin and Ethereum. Maybe Ethereum is good too, but anyway, apparently my co-organizer of the meetup, Frank, said that he's been to Bitcoin meetups and is all like, okay, what's the next coin, and all this hype and pump and dumps and stuff. But you don't find that here at the EOS Calgary meetup, and hopefully it's that way around the world. It's real people trying to build real stuff on the EOS blockchain.
Yeah, I think that's something that Kevin and I noticed early on. There weren't as many when mooners here in this project.
Yeah.
You haven't been to the EOS Price Telegram channel.
Not for a while. I can't think I deleted it, to be honest.
Hey, I actually enjoy the EOS Price Telegram channel. They're fun, especially when the markets are going down. They're pretty funny.
It is hilarious.
It's pretty hilarious, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the
them.
EOS.Cafe originally started as something different, but you guys keep growing, and now you're doing a block producer candidacy as well.
Yes. So, like, when we thought about this, like, cafes are not a minimal investment. Like, cafes are big investment projects that can take up a lot of money to get off the ground and like maintain. So we thought about how can we actually build this revenue. And just while we were thinking about it, we had a meetup going, and luckily enough, we met our member who couldn't make it right now. He had to drop off his son, unfortunately. But his name is Swan, and he's a systems engineer. He's been a system administrator for 5 to 10 years now, maintaining like high performance like Linux clusters. So pretty much exactly where EOS wants to go with the cluster parallelization. And he was like, yeah, we can especially at the start, like we can definitely do this. It's just like a single computer for now, right? It's like a single server. And so we were like, hey, like it's perfect. Like we can have EOS Calgary, and that's the way we've set it up. We don't want EOS.Cafe itself. We don't want the cafe idea to become about block production, right? Because block production itself is a very deterministic role. It's a very technological role that you want to produce the same type of block every single time, pretty much. Like, so we're like, why don't we partner with the EOS Calgary as a corporation, which will manage all the technological infrastructure, while EOS.Cafe does all the community building, does all the EOS.Cafe infrastructure, helps develop dApps, and all of the cool jazz that's what we're really excited about, right? Because in the end, a lot of block producers will have the same technological structure, will have the same specs in a way, but it's where the community is that will be differing in, and that's where we're really excited in, especially with our cafes.
Oh, we're just having a slight problem with Syed's connection there. Can you hear us, Syed?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you cut out there for a little bit. Yeah, I think that's awesome. So your teammate is pretty much like the building out the clusters. Is that going to be a bare metal or a AWS?
Yes. So right now we're in talks with a local cloud provider. So for now, we'll be testing on AWS, just like pretty much every block producer right now. But by June 3rd, we want to be on a local provider so that we're not dependent on like a global provider like AWS or Google, because we want to avoid, if we can, the centralization of BPs on those networks. So we're trying to source a local cloud provider, and as we scale, we'll be building our own bare metal infrastructure, hopefully inside data centers, because data centers have a lot of, like, they have inherent like redundancy built in. They have access to high network speeds that you can't pretty much get anywhere else, right? Mm-hmm. So hopefully we'll be moving from their cloud to like shared hosting, and at the rate EOS is going, hopefully a data center in perhaps even a year.
A data center right next to a coffee shop.
Hey, the people working in the data center need coffee too. Could be right inside.
You've got an excellent point. I'm sure they definitely do. And I'm reading your intro post right now. I have it pulled up as well. And you guys, you've helped with meetups in Canada, Nigeria, and China, all around the world.
Yes, and I mean, we've been in talks right now. We have a huge Korean community, huge support from the Korean community, and we've been in talks and perhaps even having one in Seoul soon. And we want to continue these. Like, we don't want these to be a one-time meetup, right? We want these to be continual meetups that we keep providing resources for, that we keep supporting, so that it builds into like a monthly and a regular thing where people are actually not just learning about EOS, but actually perhaps developing their own dApps and recruiting more programmers and spreading the word about EOS.
That's awesome. So just out of curiosity, just to go off topic a little bit, in Calgary and Alberta and Saskatchewan. Is Tim Hortons as big as it is in Ontario?
Oh, it's
Yes.
huge. It's huge.
Okay.
Yeah, they
But-
dominate, I would say.
Okay.
But
And-
but at the same time, there's tons of cafes, right? Like Tim Hortons is seen as that like pretty much like cheap, ready to go kind of solution. Like you go in, it's very cheap. Like Tim Hortons is very cheap and efficient. Like you go in, you have your coffee in like 10, 15 seconds pretty much. But like cafes are seen as that place where you sit down, discuss ideas, where you meet for coffee pretty much.
Yeah.
That's not what Tim Hortons is seen as.
It almost sounds like you guys are doing kind of a foundry cafe, where it's kind of like an office meet space where people who maybe work from home or entrepreneurs, they can just come together and drink coffee and also have a space to collaborate and
Exactly. We call them coffee hacker spaces.
hacker spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, good deal.
Yeah, I think collaboration would be the key thing. It's about coffee, but it's more about collaboration, just whether it's online collaboration or people meeting each other face to face, as they say cyberspace or meet space in the real world. And yeah.
And how does the Beans token work?
Right.
Yeah,
So,
good question.
Troy, do you want to start off? Troy's the founder of Beans.
Well, the Beans token is basically it's you get voting rights in the DAC. Now, this is going to be on the launch of the. Right now, I'm just distributing them to whoever wants them. Number one, we're never going to sell Beans tokens. We're not accepting money for Beans tokens. Okay.
Okay.
It's only based off of you like being active in the community and participating in the community.
I guess. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the more active you are, the more beans you're gonna earn for. We have this one guy that's doing essentially all of our branding, and he's just outputting stuff every day. And it's like, okay, well, you're earning a lot of beans. He's gonna be, a beans whale.
The Beans whale.
No, I don't know. Not yet. No, there's so many. We've handed out so few of them so far and we have different plans for. It's going to be in the white paper as far as how the distribution is going to go exactly. But at this first build up, we're trying to build up to 100,000 members on the Discord server, and right now we just I think gained about 200 members in the last 24 hours, and we're at 3,100 members. So we're gonna we're 3% to our goal. Now, some of these people are showing up for free beans, and some of these people are showing up to collaborate. I'm not sure what the percentage is. It could be the 80-20 rule. Usually rules everything is the 80-20 principle. And so we're hoping if we can get 20% active individuals, that's going to be a win, and we're going to build some cool stuff. I'm not sure your question. Your question was about Beans tokens. Okay, basically, when the EOS.io community blockchain launches in June, we'll have a smart contract set up that if you have Beans tokens, you're going to be able to guide, you own and you guide the DAC based on your stake, just like a lot of other projects. It's guided based on its stake. And does that answer your question?
Yeah, you said something about voting as well with the Beans tokens.
Yeah.
So the way the system works is that since we partnered with EOS Calgary pretty much for the BP infrastructure, they pay right as a percentage of their revenue. They pay a percentage of their revenue whenever they get a payout right to EOS.Cafe. And that revenue goes right into, similar to like EOS itself, it goes into a worker proposal fund, the EOS.Cafe worker proposal fund, which is then voted on by all members of the DAC to support perhaps projects in building up cafes, perhaps upgrading another cafe, which the whole community, if you own Beans, you can pretty much propose ideas to the community, which will then be voted on by the community and paid out by the worker proposal fund of the DAC. So we want to ensure in that sense that we do not end up having a fair distribution of beans, and pretty much have a decentralized autonomous corporation running as a EOS.Cafe.
What kind of services do you think that worker proposals will help spur? Like, what kind of needed products and services would a worker proposal fund?
Right. So one of the things that we've been thinking about, perhaps as the EOS.Cafe is self-supporting, is the ability to use EOS as like a point of sale, perhaps, right? That is something a DAC as a pretty much corporation together can like vote on and have developers develop that. They can pay developers to develop that for all of its cafes. Like that's an example of a service that the DAC could be funding. And similarly, a DAC could be, someone could enter a proposal, like a well thought out proposal by a group of individuals that, let's say we want to build a cafe in Shanghai, right? Then the owners of Beans would be able to vote on that and decide whether that project will be funded or not, whether that EOS.Cafe in Shanghai will happen to be a reality or not.
Yeah. And as far as, other services, we're basically providing collaboration spaces. It's going to kind of have two types of customers, I would say. When you build, you're paying a lease or you're buying a building or whatever, you have to exist in the real world also. And so you have walk-in customers and you got to provide them with what they want. So it's just like a normal cafe. And then we couple that with the crowd we're building up around EOS enthusiasts. Like they're going to want to come to our EOS cafes because they got beans automatically for being EOS token holders, and they're going to want to come to the EOS Cafe and they're going to want to buy the EOS Cafe t-shirts. But the services for them, just be hacker spaces and collaboration spaces. And
so I've never run a small business like a food service business, but I'm thinking that usually their sales will cover their costs. What you're saying is that the worker proposal can go to subsidize probably the costs of a EOS Cafe? Is that what I'm hearing?
So the DAC is pretty much like, we are not going to be creating cafes, obviously, that are either not meeting their own cost or like not profitable, right?
Okay.
What we'll be doing is providing that initial capital that's needed to spring up these cafes. So we can, as a DAC can choose to either own the property, like the DAC. It could be an asset-backed DAC, right? Like it could actually physically own the locations around the world that the cafes are.
So the DAC could be on the title.
What do you mean, sorry? On the property title. Yes, definitely. The DAC could be, if we incorporate as a limited somewhere, the DAC, that corporation could be on the title.
Yep, and it's important to note that there's a Western world thinking about cost of businesses and stuff, and then there's the developing world. And I'm really big into investing in the developing world. And to start a cafe in downtown Calgary, downtown Vancouver, where you guys are from, Toronto, is that?
I spent some time in Toronto, but that would probably be the most expensive thing in the world, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be high cost, but
multi-million-dollar.
But guess what? We can start a cafe in Lagos, Nigeria, if we wanted to, for $1,000 a year rent.
Wow.
So that opens up all sorts of opportunities. Plus, you couple that with in these developing countries that I think the world is going to flip. I think they're going to are starting to achieve awesome stuff, and they're going to maybe outpace us. Just like they skipped, how they skipped the telephone pole technology and went straight to cell phones. That's a common analogy. They're gonna skip a lot of stuff and go to the next level in a lot of areas, including governance, hopefully. So we're going to these places can be opened up very cheaply, and then you have this society that's average age, like probably 20 years younger, the average age is than the Western world, or the developed world, I guess. I don't know what we call ourselves. But anyway, it's things could go upside down. And I'm really excited about, it would be cool to have cafes, and I'm not saying it's not going to happen. It would be great to have a cafe in EOS.Cafe in Seoul, Korea. Like that's a big possibility, because they love EOS so much. And I think it's down to 70% of our memberships from Korea, and they're awesome people. But the cost in Africa and South America is just going to be, we got to balance that, and just whatever is voted for, essentially, because we're not this isn't
this isn't us just deciding whichever cafe we want to build, right? This will be by a DAC.
So these guys in the developing world, and just give them computers, give them internet connections. Let's talk about services. It's like they're doing stuff on their phones, which is cool, but like a few laptops there, internet connection and power. That's what they need, is because they're using generators and costing them like $3 a day for their own power. And
you mentioned South Korea. I think they have the biggest penetration in terms of crypto assets, right?
I think you're correct.
40 to 50% of daily EOS volume runs through Korean exchanges.
That's amazing.
So.
That is something else. Yeah, it's starting to come together to me now. I always had that Western world thinking where I'm going, okay, well, LA, the rent is so high and everything else. And of course, the margins are very slim with cafes. But I mean, it makes sense with, developing world, like you said, especially because they probably don't have that kind of experience of sitting in a nice cafe, having a coffee and doing some work, especially if they have the ability to work from a computer, thanks to blockchain, right? Thanks to the dApps that may come from EOS. So it's starting to make sense to me now. And where do you see these cafes initially? What have you seen from the community thus far in terms of direction for this might go?
So our main two locations that have seen a lot of support is Lagos, Nigeria, and Seoul, Korea. Those are the two locations that we've had in. And obviously the price disparity is huge between those two locations. So that is definitely something that the DAC itself would have to consider. But as Troy said, if the DAC has the funds, there's nothing stopping it from starting a cafe in Seoul, Korea, right?
Correct.
That could very well be a possibility for the DAC.
When it comes to hiring and employees and everything of that nature, how does that structure look, or is that still to come?
Mm-hmm. Well, we're still in the works with the white paper, obviously, but it would probably work the same way most DACs work, is that they offload parts of their infrastructure building or their services to limited corporations. They hire them as pretty much like business management people that manage. So there would be like a core company or a group of people that would form a corporation, hopefully, in that respective country, that will be managing the cafe and the daily activities of the cafe, while the EOS.Cafe DAC would hopefully have the creative control and the ability to promote EOS events and have all the EOS branding, hopefully.
Yeah, that's a really tough question. That's I'm gonna have to be. Never really thought of that, having separate. But yeah, I think you're right, Zahid. Yeah, but definitely the block producers. It's its own entity, and as was explained earlier. So anyway, continue.
Yeah. So I mean, you guys launched a new website. What is coming up next for you guys?
Mm-hmm. So next up, right now, we're pretty much we're waiting right now on from the local internet service provider. We're waiting on a static IP. We've had the infrastructure up and ready to go to join the testnet. But it's a little weird in Canada that you need to have a full business account with the ISP to get a static IP, which they don't have for residential because it's like dynamic IPs for residential. So we should have that figured out just in the week. That's like short term, and we'll be right on the one of the community test nets, probably EOSnet or Scholar, and right after that, we're obviously going to be continuing our meetups, and what we're looking forward to most is the international collaboration. We've been in talks. Oh, Kevin cut out, I think. We've been in talks with dApps and other international communities that we want to collaborate with, and hopefully create more community dApps and let people of our community know more about the platform of like big other block producers around the world, so that we're not isolated and the international community is not isolated. For example, the Asian community, we don't want the Asian community to be isolated from the Western world just because of the language barriers. And that is something we've been actively working on, because we have translators and we have a big Korean community that
and the community that you speak of is your Discord, right? I believe you said you had 3,000 members there. How can people get an invite to that and get more involved with?
So it's an easy link. It's just discord.io/EOS.Cafe. So
wow.
Yeah, it's just a simple. Everything is branded EOS.Cafe for our thing. So you can find us on Medium, Steemit, Twitter. Yeah.
What's your Twitter handle on there? EOS.Cafe as well?
Yes, we haven't started posting. Our first post will be retweeting our new introduction, but you can also, most direct updates right now come from Troy, who does it on his personal Twitter to like 2,000 something people right now, I think. But and you can learn all the Discord links and everything are also at our easy website, which is just EOS.Cafe. There's no .com or anything. It's like the cafe TLD.
Very cool.
It's EOS.Cafe. We just launched a new website today too with the introduction. So yeah.
And what's the easiest way to earn some beans here? So they're doing the Discord, they get some beans.
Yes. So we made a decently lengthy Google form. Like you don't have to do multiple things, but we don't want bots or people to be like spamming it, or people just creating pretty much like bots that have like 1,000 accounts and then they get like 10,000 beans each, right? Like that could very easily happen. Like it happens with tons of Ethereum, where people create 1,000 Ethereum addresses and then register to get the airdrop. So we have a Google form right now, and then we expect to see you on the Discord. Be active, hopefully, and then you can post your BitShares. Right now it's on BitShares. Dan has said publicly that there will be a way, hopefully in the soon future, to convert BitShares tokens to the EOS token contracts. So we'll be looking forward at that. And if that doesn't work out, then we will be manually distributing on the EOS platform, obviously.
Nice. Go ahead, Troy.
Yeah, no, I'm just really, really excited about the project and the people we're meeting every day, the different people that come in, and it's like, wow, you do this, so that'll work. That'll fit really good with what we're trying to do here. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about meetups just for a second, because there should be an EOS meetup in every town over 1 million people, I would say. And I just want to say that I wouldn't have had a chance to do anything constructive in this space without starting. The only reason why I don't know if I'm going to succeed. The only reason why I'm going to is because I started that meetup in Calgary, and I met a handful of people like that are just freaking awesome. And that's my two partners in this EOS Calgary cafe block producer, and that's two. And then other people I've met too that are just awesome. And so if you do that, if you start a meetup, doesn't matter where you are in Kansas or where, or start a meetup for EOS, and you will be at the center. People will be emailing you. Then all of a sudden, bang! If you know a little bit about EOS, bang! You're the leader. I'm a freaking farmer, okay? But I coupled myself with two guys that know coding and know how to build a block producer, and we're serious about this. I know I'm kind of making fun of myself a little, but we're serious about this, and those guys have the knowledge, and that's all I'm saying. Start a meetup, and
Also, if you need help setting up a meetup, like we can set you up with a meetup.com account. We can help connect you to people in your community, because we are a global community at the end of the day. We have people from all around the world in our Discords, Telegram, and everywhere. So if you're thinking about starting an EOS meetup, you don't have one in your city, perhaps, come on in, like contact one of us, and we'll set you up with a meetup.com account, and we'll help you set up the meetup and give you resources.
Awesome.
And I agree. Meeting EOS fans in person is really an invigorating experience. I love it. The Telegram does not convey the excitement around EOS and the questions people have, and then of course the passion is there, but they are still learning, and everybody's still learning. But that's the best part, is that we can all sort of help each other and make the most of it.
What about an EOS price meetup?
It's funny.
That might
Pepe memes everywhere.
That won't fare well today. 20% down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't be
the Pepe meme with him hanging himself, right?
It wouldn't be a family-friendly meetup, I don't believe. Yeah, thank you guys for doing all the work. Also, I see you guys in the EOS Reddit doing the daily discussion threads nowadays. You guys are really starting to step up in the community, so it's cool to see that. And I'm excited as well to see where you guys go, where you guys take it. Thank you guys for talking more about the project. And so head to your Discord, earn some beans there, and of course you guys will have the Twitter going soon, and the website looks good. You guys just got it up.
And check out our introduction. We just posted it today. Or everything we've pretty much scaled up our plans. So you can find us at discord.io/EOS.Cafe, which is EOSCAFE. And we have the same handle on pretty much every social media platform you can think of. So go and follow us everywhere.
Top K-Pop was nice enough to put it in the chat, so everyone should have the...
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you guys for coming on. A great project. I'm really excited for this one, actually.
Yeah, thank you for having us. We're just as excited to build these cafes and hopefully have you guys doing one of these interviews in one of our cafes.
That'd be interesting.
I like that. I'll be slugging down that coffee like I saw Troy do earlier. Just slam that thing in there.
Yeah.
That's my style as well. So, get it in there. So
he's never too far away from a coffee cup. If you actually look at our introduction, we posted his picture right beside a coffee plant holding like a coffee mug. Like that's who he is as a person, right?
I thought it fit. It fit.
It was beautiful. It was wonderful. Yep.
We're certainly humbled to be invited on this program, by the way. Thank you very much for, I guess I already thank you for the platform, but to get our message out there.
You're absolutely welcome.
Hey, yeah, definitely. Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot for coming on. Yep.
Okay.
Have a good night, guys.
Good night.
Yeah. Good night.
Take care, guys.
See you on the Telegrams or the Discord.
Right.
Right.
Very cool concept.
Very cool. I mean, that's what really impresses me, is that they're doing something completely different from everybody else. It's very easy for us to sort of sit here and work on projects on our computers. It's much harder to try and set something up to where we can actually bridge into the physical world. And folks who don't know anything about blockchain and who would like to learn more, but just want to start and get their coffee first. So I think it's kind of cool that they're taking those steps.
International too. I mean, the world is so crazy now with a DAC that can be operating in Lagos, Nigeria, I believe they said, right? And then another one in Calgary, right? Under the same brand. That's just amazing.
Yeah, and also a few things they said that resonated with me. They talked about how things happen very quickly in blockchain and how there are already things are starting to roll. The ball is rolling. They met some community members who helped here and who have already possibly set up cafes and may be able to integrate with EOS.Cafe eventually. So I thought that was all very neat. We have Thomas Cox coming on here very shortly, so you may see him pop in here. But I enjoyed that talk with those guys. And I've heard a lot about the Beans tokens. I didn't know entirely what they're about, but I'm glad that they are coming.
Oh, there's Mr. Cox. And here we have a special screen, guys. Hey, Mr. Cox. How you do?
I look different, yes. Shaved the beard.
Oh, my goodness.
Whoa, he looks like he's about 20. Are you 25, Mr. Cox? How old are you?
Thank you. That's a very gratifying question. Please continue to refer to me as the 25-year-old Mr. Cox.
Okay.
Wow. Just get out of college, folks.
I grew the beard very seriously. I grew my goatee my early 30s when I started being a consultant, because no one wants to hire a consultant who looks like their kid. And now that I'm older, I felt, number one, I no longer needed it for that purposes, and number two, it'd gotten wiry enough that my wife no longer enjoyed being kissed by me.
Okay.
And that took about 5 minutes between learning that and
Priorities.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let the wisdom speak for itself. Absolutely.
Let's just say it was proven rapidly to have been the right call.
Good deal.
Thomas, we have the questions on the screen here. I don't know if you can see them,
Great.
but we put them up here.
Okay, super.
And they're all listed. So I guess we can go in order, or whatever order that you would like. I mean,
since I'm not seeing the screen, I'm seeing the Zoom session, which is live here with us, and you guys are also seeing, I think, the fully mixed outbound stream. Read the question aloud that the folks can see, and then I'll answer the one that's on screen.
Okay. Well, let's go in order here.
Great.
So from the top, we have, wouldn't we want some firms to do arbitration?
Law firms. That's the law firm question, right?
Law firms to do arbitration.
Yeah. And so that was an Alexander Bluejays question. Alex has been doing some amazing work for us in the community, by the way. Huge contributions in the BioSpoot process. I'm looking forward to bragging about that as it shapes up. He's going to be fond of a number of questions as well as some answers, I suspect. So yeah, do we want law firms to do arbitration? Or, I might say parenthetically, do we want firms that are professional arbitration providing firms to do arbitration? And we've been talking about that quite a bit. The current thinking is that there'll be a spectrum of small to large arbitration cases, and really small ones should probably just be done by your friends who understand the issue and are your peers in whatever space you're in. So, for instance, we mentioned Open Bazaar previously. Open Bazaar is a blockchain-based shopping mall like Etsy. It's like a bunch of little vendors and a bunch of customers. And they've got it set up with on-chain arbitration by fellow community members who understand the community and the rules and the sort of the way things have evolved over time. And that's huge. You've got to have local knowledge. If there were ever an EOS Go community dispute, the last thing you want is some person arbitrating who's like never been on EOS Go's forum and doesn't know any of the players and isn't familiar with like the months and months of just sort of unwritten rules that have built up. And so that local knowledge is huge, both so you don't do stupid stuff and so that people feel understood in the arbitration process. So for a very small claim, you're probably just going to want a volunteer from your community who's gone through a simple training. For something a little larger, you might want to pay a fee, but again, you'll have probably somebody local, and local in the metaphorical sense of a part of your group. As you get up in dollar value or as complexity goes up, two things happen. You're more likely to go to a 3-person panel for a large, expensive, or difficult arbitration, and you're more likely to see, because there's enough money involved, your EOS savvy community member is going to be encouraged, and this will be in our little handbook, if you will, to take a portion of their fee and hire somebody who's an arbitration expert, because we've got two kinds of expertise: domain expertise about EOS, and in particular your whatever community you're in of ride sharing people or electricity resale people or game object selling people or crypto kitties or whatever it is, right? You want that domain knowledge, but you may need specialized legal or arbitration knowledge. And what you do is you have the community person take the lead. They hire the arbitration expert with a portion of their arbitration fee. And I've got on my roadmap for arbitration a plan to recruit professional arbitration providing firms around the world who will raise their hand to be listed as, hey, we will be the second seat of a 2-seat deal when you've got a large enough arbitration that it's worth getting that kind of expertise. So that's a very long way of saying, yes, we want to have outside experts.
Okay.
Next question.
Yeah, that was well said. Let's see. So and Thomas, you're saying that people will read the Constitution. People could use a piece of software. This is also from Alexandre Bourget, by the way.
Right.
He said people could use a piece of software that cryptographically signs the chain ID or the Constitution hash without them having to read anything. And we won't be able to force all website owners to present the Constitution, will we?
Great question. Bearing in mind that the EOS blockchain is a back end, and there will be many, many front ends. And this idea of signing the Constitution, just so folks are up to speed on that, we expect people to know what the rules are. And we do that by publishing the rules. We do that by requiring every transaction/transaction signature to have a reference to whichever constitution you agree with as you do this thing you're doing. And if you aren't submitting a transaction with that reference as a constitution, then the nodes won't process it. So you must be agreeing with some constitution, and it better be one of either the current one or the one that was just voted out like 5 minutes earlier. There's like a window in there where we might accept two different ones. But usually it's going to be whatever the current constitution is. So yeah, you're going to have to sign it when you join, and you'll have to be continually referring to it as you go about your daily business, saying, yep, sure enough, I'm doing this under the aegis of the Constitution, whose hash is this. And if you don't do that, your transaction's null and void. Okay, but there's this idea of, well, people will agree to it, but what if they don't, right? What if your access to the blockchain is through some website that just like says, here, buy a crypto doggy or whatever, but they don't go through the process of telling you what the rules are. Two ways that can break. One is that user never really got onto the blockchain so much as they interacted with a blockchain app. They don't have a separate account on the blockchain, so they're not technically a blockchain user in that sense of having a blockchain account. They have like a crypto doggy account off on the crypto doggy server, but crypto doggies has the account, and so that could be kind of weird. And they're not really quite a member, and so I'm not sure precisely how that'll break. They might still be able to take arbitration, though. They might still be able to get justice. More likely, you're going to see that whoever that website is going to give them an account. They'll have to go through a sign-up process. Maybe they'll submit a credit card, and that person creates the account for them, and sells them a few of their own EOS tokens to get them rolling, something like that. Maybe we will be publishing a best practices guide, is my expectation, that will say, here's how to get a new person on board. And when you create Fred's account, you're promising that you know who Fred is well enough to be doing this, that you're not facilitating, money laundering or something. And you told him what the Constitution was and he agreed to it. And here's how we want you to do that. Here's a sample of how one might go about doing that. And so in the future, someone might say, hey, wait, no one ever showed me the Constitution. Or Fred's competitor might say, don't use his website. He doesn't show the Constitution. He's a bad actor. Or whatever. So we can't on-chain through code enforce it. Remember, there's the 4 big ways to enforce things, one of which is code, one of which is social pressure, one of which is law and expectation in written contract that's not code enforced, but it's still a contract, which will be part of this. And then there's market forces. And the threat of being labeled a bad actor, the threat of being taken into arbitration and maybe having to pay a penalty, the ready availability of a handbook with some sample screens of like, here's how to onboard a new user, be a good player, should all combine to make it likely that the vast majority of users will be shown a constitution that they will sign during onboarding. And if that proves to be wrong, we'll have to take remedial effort because we need people to have informed consent of the rules so that we can then hold them to the rules.
And speaking of remedial, we've talked about how Dan has mentioned in the past about the Constitution being at a 6th grade reading level, something that's somewhat easy to understand and read and hopefully readable. Is that correct?
You're going to try very hard to make it as easy to read and understand as possible. And you'll actually already see that on the EOS Go forums. We've already I've already published my first draft of Article 1 of the Constitution, or Article 1 of the Draft Constitution version 0.1, and I would love additional feedback on that. We've already gotten some great comments, and I'm going to work very hard to get the remainder of the draft that I'm writing, my version, right, the one that gets fed into the great food processor of public opinion for improvement. Want to get that out on or before the delivery of the next major release of our code sometime here late March, early April. So within the next week or two.
Oh, nice, very nice. There is a question. If we adopt a new constitution by vote, will it change the change ID? Will there be a
chain ID? Right,
chain
right.
ID?
Yeah. So part of the way you identify multiple, let's say there's 3 EOS public chains running, just like you've got Bitcoin Cash, you might have multiple, variants of EOS. We're open source. We're expecting people to want to run us. There could be a main one and then a special purpose one, and they're both public. How do you tell them apart? And the answer is they have different chain IDs.
Okay.
And I'm still talking with Dan about this. Is the chain ID equal to the Constitution hash? Well, in the current 0.2.x code release, yes. Is it in the 3.0? Maybe. Will it be that way when we release in June? I'm thinking not. I'm thinking that chain ID will actually be a unique identifier for the chain that is constant across constitutions. So as you evolve the Constitution and you make an amendment, and you've amended the Constitution, obviously the hash is going to change. That people will be shown the new Constitution, expected to re-ratify it, or have at least the chance to look at it. And every transaction will be signed with the hash of whatever the current Constitution is. But I think we need to tease it apart from the chain ID, or else Dan has to explain to me how that works. Maybe chain ID does change with Constitution changes.
What would be the benefit of tying it to putting it in the hash? Is that so that you can an arbitration process?
It's to help you know which rules were in effect when.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So
it's like, wait, at the time I did that, it wasn't actually illegal to blank.
And now it is, or
vice versa, or whatever.
Yeah. Interesting.
We should ask this question. It's moving on a little bit, but Rob Finch has asked about guidelines or requirements for block producer infrastructure, or whether it's still up in the air. We get this question often. So
yeah, I'm so sorry that people keep asking it and that we haven't given them a definitive answer yet. And I'll explain why the definitive answer has not been forthcoming. We made a significant number of changes to the way the code actually executes between 2.x and 0.3.0, the one that's dropping soon. So much so that the performance of the code on the older code base is so different from the performance of the code on the new code base that if we ran benchmarks on the old code, it wouldn't necessarily translate. And so the performance profile would be different enough that we really just need to wait. And once that code is ready and released, we can then begin the process that we had said we would be doing in February, that now we haven't even done in March yet, of having clear performance guidelines, based on user load samples, based on stress testing, of how much hardware that you as a block producer need to throw at it. Having said that, there are some pretty simple guidelines that a person can deduce from the architectural aspects of our code, the most important of which is we're memory resident. We have the shared mempool, and most people who are block producers know how the block producers communicate with each other, and we're single-threaded. And if you want a person who knows that might deduce, and this is not official guidance from my employer, this is me helping you look at what's in front of you, probably a 2 CPU machine would be sufficient, because a single-threaded server runs on one. It's going to dominate one CPU, and the other one can do everything else, and you've pretty much used up all you need. A third or a fourth CPU might not do you much good. It should be the fastest CPUs you can get your hands on, and because we hold state in memory, you might be thinking, wow, I either need a lot of memory or at least I need a machine that can take a lot of memory when it's time to use it, because initially we won't need that much, but over time, as the state grows and gets more complex and more people join, the memory requirement will grow. So probably 2 CPUs, probably a ton of RAM in your upgrade path, and very fast, high bandwidth throughput on your network, which means you're probably close to or on an internet backbone. Maybe you're in a co-location center somewhere. You're probably not in rural Arkansas in a trailer with, the 286 and a fan blowing on it and some sort of like satellite internet connection or a dial-up modem.
56K.
Okay? You're going to need a fast network connection, I'm convinced. So that's kind of the global look. And if you price that out, you're going to find that we're not talking about an entire data center. We're talking about one largish machine, which puts block production hardware, at least initially, within reach of a lot of people, which is going to make the block producer race really interesting.
Yeah, and I believe we have 60 already, Kevin. 60.
Nice.
Yeah, that list will be coming out Wednesday, and there are a few new additions. We'll be over 60 at this point, so it's getting...
That's super. So I got to say, if you're going to be a block producer or you're interested in block production, definitely check out the EOS Go resources. Yay, EOS Go. You guys are such a hugely important aspect of our work. One of the most important things that Block One can't do as a company is provide the information clearing mechanisms that the community requires. And EOS Go is, I would say, clearly one of the most important information clearing mechanisms available to our community. And thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Thomas. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Another question we have here, and I believe this was probably answered with the BIOS explanation at one point, but is there a tentative date for the election relative to the mainnet going live?
Oh, right. Yeah. So that's going to depend a lot on just the mechanics of some of the very fine-grained details of the BIOS boot process, but I'll try to describe that. So as we're going live, there's a moment at 10 p.m. UTC, which is like Greenwich Mean Time. It's Universal Coordinated Time. 10 p.m. on the 2nd of June 2018 is when the tokens should freeze. Basically, the freeze command becomes available for someone to issue. Anyone can issue it without qualification. It's like an open call. Someone will issue that command, at which point the tokens freeze and a snapshot is possible. How long does a snapshot take to make? 10 minutes? 20 minutes? I don't know. Depends on how many accounts are in place by then. Depends on a number of other factors. How congested is the Ethereum network? I don't know. So we'll see. And then so a snapshot has to happen, and then that snapshot has to be injected into by the BIOS boot machine. That has to load those initial balances in like almost immediately after boot. And how long will that take? Well, it'll take as long as it takes. And I mentioned that we haven't done a lot of load performance testing, number one. Number two, we don't know who the BIOS boot person's going to be and how fast his machine is or her machine is. So that's a little bit of an unknown. So sometime after 10 p.m. UTC, which is 6 p.m. on the East Coast of the US, the snapshot will start to get created. Once it's done, the BIOS boot node will be identified. It'll start to apply the initial balances. Then, and it creates the system contracts, and it does the whole BIOS boot process. I'm guessing it'll take maybe 2 hours to go from the clock tick through the freeze, the snapshot, the BIOS boot, and the first 21 appointed producers. And once the 21 appointed producers are in place, elections are possible. As soon as those 21 are in. That could be 10 minutes. It could be 2 hours. I'm thinking that's probably the rough range. Let's say it's 90% likely to be somewhere between at least 10 minutes, but no more than 2 hours. And nice. We can see what happens on the day, right?
This is still documented in your Medium article.
That's the Medium article, yeah. And I didn't put in quite those timings because that's, again, we're still evolving that, and we're still seeing how long things take. There was recently some work done to make the snapshot faster. that's a little bit in flux. But the general idea is elections can happen as soon as the appointed block producers go online and say to the world, here's how to connect to me. And then if you have one of those initial balances and you've registered your tokens and you've got your EOS private key, you can connect and you can issue some sort of a transaction to say, I'm here. And once 15% of tokens are represented on the chain, then all the chain functionality unlocks and interesting stuff begins to happen, but the elections happen right away. So basically within a couple of hours is my best guess.
Huh, that's pretty good. And so moving to Andrew Fermanzik, he's asking about wealth disparity and Pareto principle. Is we hear about it a lot from Dan and everybody else, talking about the top 20% of the token holders, or they will own the 80% of the rest of the tokens. And so Andrew's asking about whether there will be any kind of soft mechanism to rebalance the wealth to keep disparity at a reasonable level. I mean, he's not talking about a communist distribution of wealth. He's just talking about, he read a book by Will and Ariel Durant about how humans have concentrated abilities and wealth has historically been concentrated in the hands of those humans, basically describing the Pareto principle in more detail. And so,
by the way, if you ever read anything by Will and Ariel Durant, you'll be well served. They did some amazing work. I commend that for your personal reading list. Will there be mechanisms for redistributing wealth? None that I'm aware of. I just earlier today read an analysis of the token distribution and the whaleness or non-whaleness of the distro. And as I recall, and this was out of the EOS SoCal, did this, and this is from memory, so you should go look it up yourself, that nobody seems to have in any one wallet more than about 4% of tokens. Now, that only needs like 25 people with 4%, and then that would be 100% in theory, right? But if it's the maximum is 4% and it trails off to 3, 2, 1%, yeah, the top 100 probably have 50% of the tokens. Wouldn't surprise me. Is that evil? Maybe not in and of itself. We'll see how they behave. If they're committed to having a healthy chain because they invested good money in the hope of a future token ecology that's healthy and vibrant, then the last thing they're going to want to do is harm it. Mm-hmm. So will there, the question was, are there mechanisms to reduce it? Not currently, and I don't know of anybody proposing any constitutional amendments to create one, but that is how you would create such a mechanism. Most likely is you would have to vote it in.
And we've even seen Dan, this is off the beaten path here when it comes to the community questions, but we've seen Dan mention that Block One may vote on block producers should that come down, should it be necessary to help reduce.
Oh, cool.
And so do you think that would include just the 1% per year, so they'd have 1% of the voting power, or would that include the vested 10%? They could vote with the full 10% up front. I received that question as well. I didn't put it in the questions list, but.
Wow, that is a great question. I'm going to have to go find out the answer to that because that's a design question for Dan.
I would think that
going either way.
I would think that the tokens that are not out there would not be able to be used to vote.
Yeah, the initial 10% of tokens are reserved for Block One. That's in the initial white paper, and those are going to be issued but locked. Mm-hmm. And they'll be unlocked slowly over the course of 10 years to about, since it's 10% locked up, one of those 10 gets unlocked each year for 10 years. Is that on a monthly cycle, a weekly, annual? We haven't decided. Probably something like weekly or monthly would be my guess. Well, the locked tokens, they can't be sold, obviously, but can they be voted? Ooh. Well, most people don't really have access to unvested things. That's what vesting means.
Yeah.
But maybe we intended something else. That's a really interesting question.
And I believe, if I remember correctly, Dan did mention that you guys would use the tokens to vote in your best interest, just like everyone else. So.
Well, that sounds like a safe assumption, doesn't it?
Yep.
Well said.
But great. Next question.
Okay. Will we as block producers need to have our own rate limiters to restrict overutilization of CPU?
Repeat the question. I want to make sure I hear it correctly.
Will we as block producers need to have our own rate limiters to restrict overutilizations of CPU?
I'm going to have to ask that whoever wrote that join us over on the Block Pros chat, and I might bring in one of the developers to talk with them about that, because I can understand the question at least two different ways, maybe three, and I don't want to like rattle off all the different interpretations of the question and the possible answers for each. So it's an important question. I will point out that our code is built using a series of plugins, and we're fully expecting block producers to write their own plugins to do special things like decide on their own way of rate limiting. That's actually in our white paper. And so there's some hooks for them to control overusage of their specific hardware. But I don't know that that's the right answer for that question that this person's trying to ask. So
fair enough. I mean,
stay tuned. We'll see how that turns out. By next week, I might have some interesting details for you.
And as you suggested too, the Block Pros channel is out there in Telegram, so please ask around, and you can join that channel if you're not already.
Yeah, or direct message me or email me at thomas.cox@block.one, or just reach out to the community. We totally here for you. I will mention the sort of the block producer credo, if you will. This is sort of informal, but it's beginning to take shape. I think this is accurate. It feels right to me, and that's as follows: that being a block producer should have no barrier to entry, but a steep technical hill. Let me explain what I mean. That we could be live for 6 months, and we've got a really stable set of the same 21 block producers day after day, week after week, and a new person should be able to come in with their new hardware and their new desire to be engaged and not be blocked from registering as a block producer and attempting to get votes. That there should be no like cabal, blocking of people out. We've had people working on block production type work since last year, and we've seen guys like Eric in Sweden, who's been incredibly effective at helping all the other block producers get technically up the hill. And if you came in like in May and it's like June's around the corner and I want to be a block producer, there should not be a culture of, well, we were here first and where were you, and go away. It should be, hey, there is no barrier to entry to serving the community through block production. If you can do the work and if you can get the votes, you get to do that. And so I mentioned no barrier to entry, but there is a technical hill to climb, which is, hey, great, you can register yourself using the reg producer command, but then you have to have the hardware, you've got to do the rehearsals, you've got to participate in the community test nets, you've got to prove yourself that you've got the technical chops, and you're going to have to go out there and campaign for votes, because otherwise you'll never make it. So yeah, there's a hill to climb, and that hill may get pretty steep.
Sure.
And we should always be welcoming new challenges to keep ourselves fresh.
And that hopefully will turn out. Do you have any idea practically how we can make sure or ensure that that does happen in terms of avoiding tribalism between block producers and keeping each other voted in? And of course, there will be a little bit of like, hey, I'm the guy in charge here. I don't want you coming up against me.
Well, any group that's together for any length of time is going to establish some shared norms, and they're going to get to know each other. And there'll be a kind of an informal social in-group. And that's like part of human brain wiring. I don't think you turn that off. And this person who's really committed to joining the group, I think, should be allowed the opportunity to try. And I know that all of the block producers I've interacted with so far are deeply committed to the health of the chain. And when I say no barrier to entry, what I really mean is current block producers should always be striving to improve. They should never rest on their laurels. They should never get lazy. They should never take the chain for granted. They should never take the community for granted. They're in positions of very high trust, and we're all counting on them. And we're counting on them not just to run a chain and produce blocks. We're counting on them to provide the infrastructure that is the foundation, or creating a decentralized future without which the vision of a whole lot of people around the globe can't be realized. So when I say we are counting on them and depending on them, it's like we need electricity to power the computers to go earn a living to feed our families, right? That's the level of dependency we've got on block producers. So they've got to be super reliable, and they've got to really have the best interests of the chain at heart. And that's what I look for, me personally, in a block producer, is someone who's going to be very committed and understand the seriousness of their duty and their stewardship of this potential future, because we can't build a decentralized future without them.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't build a decentralized future without a healthy chain that only the block producers can maintain for us.
Yeah, and speaking of which, this next question has to do with vote buying. So
yes. Somebody
wants to personally know how or if Block One will draw the line between vote buying and partnerships. It's not clear.
Right. It's a great question. And I'm confident that, as with everything else on the internet, every rule will be challenged, and people will come up to the edge of it and dip their toe over it, and some people will leap across it, and so forth. So let's talk about the forces that constrain behavior. And I've mentioned these before. I mentioned them last time, and I'll just keep mentioning them again and again as we move forward. And that is human behavior, including the prohibition on vote buying, could be found in any or one or more of four regions. There's the code limitations. It's very hard to prevent vote buying in the code. Although if you wrote a smart contract that says, through the smart contract, I will reward you for your vote for me, that's like a smoking gun that you just bought votes, dude. That's like stupid. You're going to lose in arbitration. So don't be that dumb. So it's not in code that we're going to protect the chain from vote buying and corruption. But that's one of the four forces. The second one, of course, is community values and our shared sense of what's right and proper. And some communities coalesce around the idea that, a certain amount of corruption's okay and it's no big deal. And, those communities do exist in the world, and they have much lower standards of living. They have much higher level of official corruption. The cost of doing business is extremely high. It's incredibly wasteful. There's Freedom House, I think it is, does an annual report on corruption around the world, and it is always correlated very highly with terrible, terrible economic outcomes, because the systems collapse, and where you need to be able to count on each other, you're being continually undercut and sold out by somebody who's supposed to have your best interests at heart, and instead they've got their own, and they rip you off. So the community can either coalesce around corruption, or we can coalesce on honesty, transparency, and real fairness. And if we have a collective understanding that we're not going to tolerate vote buying, we're going to keep an eagle eye out for it. If you report vote buying and you're found that your report is accurate and you help us crack the case, I think you should get a percentage of the confiscated tokens. Just like the IRS gives 10% of recovered evaded taxes to the whistleblower. I'll blow that whistle. Yeah. So there's that community sense of this is wrong and bad and harmful, and we're not going to put up with it. Mm-hmm. It's not boys will be boys or that's okay. It's just wrong. And so that's one of the important forces. Then there's the law. In the Constitution draft I intend to write is going to prohibit vote buying and vote selling. The Ricardian contract whereby you cast your vote, the draft I already wrote says, I acknowledge that by casting this vote, I claim I have not received anything of value in exchange for this vote. And of course, we have the Constitution that says you won't lie. So if you did get compensated and you claimed by the act of voting that you didn't, you've just lied. Mm-hmm. And now you are liable to arbitration and the confiscation of your tokens and the freezing of your account. Oops. And then, of course, there's market forces. And, I think the disincentive involved in enforcement actions could go a long way.
And as you've mentioned before, it may not even be profitable to vote by.
It's extremely likely that it won't be profitable. The number of votes you need, you'll get those votes more easily and more cheaply by just being a good producer.
That makes sense.
I mean, otherwise you're looking at trying to incentivize millions of tokens to vote for you. And, I was looking over some rather silly pro vote buying arguments, and I ran some numbers on them. And even if the token were twice what it is today, and 100% of the 5% inflation was devoted to block production, which it won't be, even then the annual money available to buy votes would be like $10 million, and you're going to get 20, 50 million votes with that's like 20 cents a year. And I'm going to put my tokens at risk for 20 cents. And now I have to break the rules and be at risk of having my tokens 100% confiscated. And that's not a 20% return. That's 20 pennies. And I ran the scenario on a $12 token. So let's see, I'm going to get 20 cents on a $12 token at high risk for what? And that's just goofy. Why would you do that?
Education.
Okay, so not only am I mad at you for hurting my chain, I'm mad at you for being stupid. You deserve to be caught and spanked. It's just wrong.
You're a bad business person.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, we'll, and time will tell. We will see, and I will continue to. I've got a tour upcoming. I'm going to be going to meetups, both virtually and in person, over the next couple of weeks, including Detroit. I think Toronto. I'm not sure if Toronto is confirmed or not. Bluejays, you can tell me. I've got my schedule here all worked out.
I saw
my
your
high tech schedule.
And you've tweeted them out too.
I did. I put it out on Telegram.
Now, are you going to plan to regrow the goatee for that tour? Because your picture shows,
I'm aware of the disparate. I'm changing the brand. I've changed the brand.
That's
I'm
false
sorry.
Advertising.
Let's just say it's version 2.0.
Okay.
Oh.
This is an upgrade.
Yeah,
More kisses from the wife. Upgrade.
Just like the new white paper for
I
EOS.
could grow the beard on the road. I'm not. She's staying home, so it doesn't really matter if I'm bristly on the road.
You don't want to be scraggly, though. You're going to avoid that.
But I'll be shaved when I'm home. Promise you that.
We have Saeed in the chat asked about arbitrators, and he wants to know about the type of transactions that will not be reversible by arbitrators.
None.
Okay. That was pretty clear. A lot of folks, there's been some discussion around that, around what could possibly be reversible, what could not be reversible, but sounds like everything.
Okay, be careful with the word reversible. I mean, the prior transaction is still in the blockchain log. Let's walk through a scenario. I am a witness, and I end up being the arbitrator. Let's say I wouldn't if I'm a witness. So let's say Kevin and I, we're going to be a two-person arbitration team on, Fred and Barney bought a crypto doggy, one from the other, and then it turned out that it was not as represented. It was misleading. And the seller insists that, no, I was totally transparent. And the buyer's like, no, he wasn't. He totally lied to me, and here's the proof. And then they both send us email, and we get the screen grabs, and we look at the contract, and we, send them some more information. We say, hey, Kevin and I say, oh, it's looking kind of like this. Can you explain this? Well, now it's looking like this. Can you explain that? And they both really get to explain themselves fully and completely. At the end of the day, we might say, the buyer should have been more careful. This is kind of sloppy. But on the merits, it kind of looks like a dirty deal. So we're going to refund 80% of the purchase price. And we're going to enter this as an arbitration lost by the seller. So it would tend to hit his reputation. And we're returning, and the crypto doggy in question stays with the buyer. So he's going to get a refund of 80%, and so that's the ruling for whatever reason. That seems fair to us. And then we issue that in writing, and we send an order to the block producers. Well, first we give the guy a chance to just send the money back, right? And let's just say he doesn't. or he doesn't even respond. He's just like gone. He's gone away. But his account got frozen when this all broke out, right? And or he was required to stick money into an escrow account in order to get his account unfrozen, so his money was at risk. Well, Kevin and I enter an order saying, here's our finding. We find for the plaintiff 80% of his claim. And let's say it was 100 EOS tokens, so we inform the block producers we want them to move 80 tokens from account Fred to account Barney. And they just enter that in, and 15 of them sign it, and it just happens. And there's it's happening. There's a pointer back to the arbitration ruling, which has a pointer out to the file with all the details of the order and the findings and everything. And so you'll see that the blockchain has got total integrity. We didn't fork it. We didn't roll it back like the DAO hack. It's just a transaction moving money from account to account under the authority of 15 block producers, which they only allowed to do in response to an arbitration ruling. Mm-hmm. They don't get to just do it on their own. So hopefully that makes sense to our listener.
Okay. Let's go back to the block producer discussion regarding the rewards that the top 21 get. Is it an even distribution, or is it proportional to stake, they say?
It's not proportionate to stake. You're thinking proof of stake, not delegated proof of stake. In regular proof of stake, the more stake you have, the more reward you get, which is a weird sort of self-reinforcing thing. Delegated proof of stake is different. The block producers are eligible for 2 different rewards. And I think there might be an infographic being worked on that explains this. I'll give it to you verbally. So every block, about 0.77 of a new token is issued for every single new block. And block producers produce 6 blocks in a row and then pass to the next. Because remember, we got half-second blocks now. We were super fast. You get finality within a second. So that's super fast. So in order to be efficient, we batch them. And so you do 6 blocks in a row and you pass the baton. And the next producer does 6 blocks in a row and he passes the baton. And so at half-second blocks, your 6 blocks takes you 3 seconds, right? So it's the 3-second turn in which you make your 6 blocks. And each of those 6 gets you 0.77 of a token, was the math I did the other day. I think it's correct, which would be 5% of the entire distribution for the year divided by the number of tokens put out every year. So the math is pretty wacky. So whatever 6 times 0.77 is, call it 4.5. Let's just say it's 5 for fun. Let's say we've been running for a while and it's more than 1 billion tokens, so that it rounds up to 5. So those 5 tokens created in the course of this guy's 3-second turn. But he doesn't get them all. They are divided initially into 2 unequal streams. The first branch of the stream goes into the worker proposal reward fund. And that is for upgrades and improvements to the system. And so as people come up with suggestions for, hey, I can make the EOS even better, please, give me some money and I'll do that. Just like we see on Dash, which has a very sophisticated system for that. And also on, I think both BitShares and Steemit may have that as well. That there's a place to go to say, hey, I want to help the chain, please fund me, and then token holders get to vote on improvement ideas. So that fund gets funded immediately, even though the worker proposal system won't be online, we don't think, in June. It will be funded in June. It'll just be waiting for some additional contracts to be written to start operating. So of the new tokens generated in this 6-block interval, 5 come out. Some of them go over there, and the rest take another branch to go to the block producers. This is hard to do without a diagram. And these are unequal. It's an unequal division. So how do we divide them? And the answer is, when block producers first ask to be elected, they register themselves and they say, I will make blocks for 30% of the total award available, or 25% or 40% or whatever it is. So let's pretend that the median of the top 21 vote getters is 40%. So what's 40% of 5? Well, it's 2, right? So 3 tokens go to worker rewards, 2 tokens come over here into the block producer funnel, which is then divided again. And it's divided 50-50 into per block awards and per vote awards. So every block producer gets paid out of both of those 2 streams on a per block basis and on a per vote basis as follows. Every block you make, you get your proportionate share of the per block award. If you miss a block, you miss your payment. And the per vote award goes into a bucket, and once a day you can come and collect a number of tokens proportionate to your percent of the vote.
So to sum it all up, essentially every block producer
gets a flat fee for block production and a variable fee for the variable number of votes they get. And the difference here is that the 21 block producers get block awards, but the top 121 vote recipients all get to participate in the vote award.
In the vote awards. Excellent.
So if you're in 22nd place, you haven't made a block ever, but you're still getting paid because you got votes.
And then, so say there's the 2% inflation number that you've been throwing out. What percent will go to the worker proposal fund?
Oh, so when I talk about that, what I'm trying to suggest is that there's 5% system inflation, of which 3 points goes to workers and 2 points goes to block production. So the 2% inflation is the 3-2 split I just illustrated. Basically, the median number was 40% of the 5%.
So the 5%.
This is going to make so much more sense with the diagram. I'm sorry. I'm like waving my hands and talking, and this is just terrible. You probably can't follow it.
No, we're getting there, sorry. I think. So it'll always be, you're basically saying it'll be 5% no matter what. The block producer amount will be reduced or raised depending on what they vote themselves in.
Right.
For.
There's always this stream coming through of 5% inflation, block by block, day by day. Okay. But what portion of that goes to workers and what portion goes to block producers? And the cheaper you are as a block producer and the less payment you're willing to take, the more gets reserved for the worker proposals. And one proposal might be, I vote to burn these tokens and reduce the total supply and increase the value of the tokens we all own. Mm-hmm. And maybe people say, yeah, let's burn some tokens. And then that can shrink that worker pool down. And some tokens get burned, and that maintains value maybe.
Okay. Are there any limits?
There's one of the ways that those tokens could get used.
Okay. Are there any limits on what those worker proposals could be? Are there any specifics?
Not really. I mean, it's up to what the voters want to vote for, but things like I want to upgrade the software to do X, or I want to introduce strong identity, or I want to create a really cool block explorer that'll be free and open source, and I need to be funded. I'd vote to spend some of it on scatter, because that's like an amazing, and if there were like a nice little income stream for that, you could hire some additional developers. It could be just killer.
We agree.
Just as one example, but it should definitely be something that benefits the whole chain. Mm-hmm. I know on Dash, for instance, they took some of their money and used it to pay for a spokesperson, a very effective one. And I'm forgetting her name, but she's like the face of Dash, and she travels around and talks about the Dash currency. And she's employed by the blockchain. It's like the community voted her money, and she got the stream of money to go and do that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, you're talking about Amanda B. Johnson, I think her name.
Amanda B. Johnson, thank you.
Yep, that is pretty cool. Well, let's do it. So Kosi Marafi had another question about...
Kosi, how are you, man?
Yeah, he's asking about an update on whether anything's being done to give producers the ability to arbitrarily turn off production on a running production node.
For what purpose? Would that be do they have to go offline, or they had to like do some sort of upgrade or something?
He did not totally specify. I guess he's just wondering if it would be possible.
Well, of course, you can always shut your machine down. I mean, we could stop you. Well, you could do that without consequences is a great question. This has been discussed, but I don't know that we've come up with a good answer. And I think that the Block Pros channel needs to come up with some sort of consensus on what they think is reasonable. Because honestly, putting on my hat of I'm just a user of the blockchain, I just want it to run. Okay, I just want it to run. And if somebody somewhere needs a reasonable amount of downtime for maintenance because they're not running a 24/7 shop the way some others might be, I don't want to penalize them for that, especially if they're bringing geographic and jurisdictional diversity to the chain, and they're part of the strength of the chain in that regard. I totally think you should be allowed to raise your hand and say, I need to be offline for 4 hours. Please don't penalize me. And odds are high, though, that with good failover, you should be able to swap in a backup machine in a matter of a couple of seconds and not miss your turn.
Sure.
So I'm going to hold out hope that we've got enough generosity and expertise in our block producer cadre to help each other not even need that.
Yeah, and he was referring specifically to scaling, and if he's running 5 nodes but only one, then submit a block.
Right, unless you ran for 2 slots and try to get voted in 2 different places, like you might have 2 candidates. You might have 2 candidacies, I suppose. But if you're just running 5 nodes, of which one's a block producer and 4 are backups, you should be able to swap between them smoothly and quickly. Because remember, your turn is for 3 seconds long every 63 seconds. And hopefully, with some practice, you can switch machines within that kind of a time window, or even if it's 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, you missed a round, but you're probably not going to get shot and left by the side of the road because you missed a round. I don't think you'll be penalized too badly for that. Now, if you drop off and go missing and incommunicado for hours and days, you're probably going to lose reputation and lose votes. So I'd watch out for that.
Okay, let's switch to an arbitration question. So person A is scammed by person B for selling a crypto doggy, and then that crypto doggy gets sold to party C. Does party C get involved in that arbitration?
Right. So what if so Fred owns the crypto doggy, Barney steals it and resells it.
Yes.
Right. Well, off the chain, the law says if you buy stolen property, you have no title to it, and it goes back to the original owner, and you get nothing.
Okay.
And I see no reason why it should be any different on an EOS blockchain or any other blockchain. Which is why when you buy something, you should make sure that you're getting a clean title to it.
Sure.
So buyer beware, caveat emptor. So yeah, and is that enforceable through arbitration? Did I mention that an arbitration order can change anything on the blockchain? Absolutely anything. Yes. Yes, it can be returned. Yes, it can be taken. Yes, it can be moved. All 3 parties are probably parties to the arbitration. Yes.
Huh.
That's clear.
Let's do a couple more rapid fire, and then we'll let you go. Mr. Cox, of course, thank you as always for coming on with us. And
very much my pleasure.
We have a question about conflict of interest and whether it would be in violation of the Constitution. So if this entity is running a DAC and a BP is supporting that DAC, do they have to refrain from voting for them because it could be seen as a conflict of interest? So the DAC, could they not then vote for the BP with their own tokens?
Wow, that's a great question.
That was by SF EOS Updates.
Yeah, it's such an interesting issue because, can I vote for myself with tokens? Well, I should be able to vote for myself, and 29 other people, or at least 20 others. Up to 30, obviously. And we know that block producers, with their modest stream of income, I don't think anyone's getting obscenely wealthy. We're not Bitcoin, folks. We are not Bitcoin. Okay, we are not creating $18 million worth of magic internet money every day, like the Bitcoin chain is doing these days. It's like $500,000, if that. And some of that's going off to worker proposals, and some of it's coming in to pay for block production. So we're not talking, huge streams of money. But let's say it's a modest stream, and the block producer is supporting a decentralized application that he really believes in, that's benefiting the whole community. It's open source. So far, that's totally clean. And then what if the open source application happens to own a bunch of tokens and votes for their benefactor? It could start to get a little stinky at that point, but in the absence of a quid pro quo where only when they vote do they get funded, and when they stop voting, they stop getting funded, and then when they start voting again, then they get funded again. See, now that's totally dirty, right? That's clearly wrong. But short of that, I think we may have to come up with some clear community guidelines. Like maybe it's only if you own like less than X%, so you're not really swinging the election very much. Maybe there's some size limits that maybe the community's more comfortable with. I really don't know, but at this point we're going to have to get into some kind of sense of the community of what feels okay to us versus what feels harmful. And I don't have a good answer for it yet.
Okay, I think let's take the last question of the day. Is there any mechanism for handling an airdrop spam? If someone wants to drop a token on EOS holders, they simply can. And this is by Ryan Andrews.
Yeah, at one point the transfer command included some provision either in the Ricardian contract or maybe in the code whereby the recipient had to actually want it in order to receive it. And I don't remember the status of that. That might have been an early draft. I'm not sure if it's preventable to be like people like flinging tokens at you just because you have some EOS, which is annoying, but I don't know how much harm is done. Certainly if you were harmed in some way, you could take that person to arbitration and say, you hurt me with your free tokens, you jerk. Maybe there's a registry somewhere that people can set up to say, please don't airdrop on me, please pass over my address.
Sounds like
like a do not call list, right?
It sounds like airdropping is the new way of sending coupons out by mail, right?
Yeah, I guess. So yeah, that's going to be another one that's going to have to be a mix of social preference and maybe some creative applications, and maybe someone creates a registry, something like that. I'm not aware of a way in the code for sure to prevent it.
Great.
Yeah, great answer. Yeah. Well, good deal. Thank you. And as always, if we have some kind of question that you'd like to ask Thomas Cox for the community, you can always send it in. We're actually going to start doing a forum post for everybody to post throughout the week, and we'll just remind everybody to post onto that forum post, and therefore we can just pull from there. So.
Super. I'm hoping that my answers were interesting. I'm hoping they're accurate, and I'm hoping they stand the test of time because the code is still being written. And I remind you, I am not an official spokesperson, and nothing I say should be construed as an official promise to do or refrain from doing anything, nor is it a promise that a particular feature will or won't occur in the production software.
It was no doubt that they were interesting.
I'm doing my best. I promise you I'll give you my absolute best answers. And I look forward to doing it again next week.
Thanks, Thomas.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Thomas.
Thank you both very much, and thank you, your support crew, for making this possible today.
That would be Katie and Top K-Pop. Thank you as well. Yep.
Awesome.
Have a good night, Thomas. Thanks.
Good night, Thomas.
Thank you.
Wow. Another mind bender with Thomas Cox. That was excellent.
Yep.
Enjoyed that. I also like the fact that there were certain parts he's not sure about and that are not in the code, and he says, look, it's the community's job. We need to figure this out ourselves. We need to determine what our own guidelines are and what is appropriate, what's not.
Constitution, amending Constitution, or arbitration. I mean, it's something that is thought about at this early stage of the game in EOS, but not in other projects, which I'm not going to name, but it is built in the code to a point where these governance is taken into account. So,
yep, absolutely. And it's an interesting. This is the first time this has actually happened, where a blockchain has been able to vote for these things, and the community's been able to decide, and then therefore amend that into the Constitution and make it law on the blockchain. So this will be obviously one huge experiment, and I like the fact that we can, at least at this point, we can still say that, like, hey, in the future, we will make those decisions as a community, and we will have to then come together and vote that in and make it an actual law, quote unquote. I don't know if we should call it a law or what it should be exactly, an amendment, an article.
Yeah, so amendment to the Constitution. That sounds good.
Yeah, I like that better myself.
Let's go to the news. Kevin.
I like it. The news, we had a big week, I would say. I talked a little bit on the top of the show about Scatter. They have opened up reservations for IDs about 48 hours ago. So if you would like any kind of ID on EOS, if you have a certain name that means a lot to you, even names like Bob or Bill are probably still available. So someday, if you think about yourself, I wonder who owns bob@gmail.com, right? Or bluejays@gmail.com, right? Well, you could be that person on EOS at this point with Scatter. So go ahead and go on to airdrops.scatter. We'll put the link in our chat, but basically it's airdrops.scatter/EOS. I think it's com.com.
Yeah, and one of the cool thing is that there's this bidding process that you can use to not only reserve but also auction your favorite name. I heard that Batman's taken. Wen Moon actually has, I think, the top votes as far last time I checked. So the username Wen Moon, Kevin, was that you?
You know what? That wasn't me. I'm when I get to the moon, I won't be asking that question anymore. So it's a fun little way to for Scatter to raise some money, and also so you're supporting Scatter. It's 1 EOS per name, which also prevents spam. So we don't have bots going in there and just registering all the names that people might want. So yeah, go in there and have some fun. The link is in the chat, or it's about to be posted on there. There are a few things that Nathan James has talked about, how you can reserve multiple names with the same MetaMask account and EOS public key.
Very good.
You can also have both biddable and private names associated with the same key. And also reservations get an extra 50 Riddle tokens. So if you sell your reservation to a bidder, you're also giving them the tokens as they are tied to the identity and not to the public key. So there's more in the Scatter Telegram channel, a few more things to learn about. So if you are interested, head on over there. Have a good time with getting your favorite names. And I believe Blue Jays, you're going to be registering I Love Ponies 22.
Already taken. I don't know.
Oh.
I was too late.
That must have been Nathan himself.
Yeah, in fact, he does have reserved names. So
he said that, yeah, when he was on the interview, there are certain names that he did reserve, like Dan, for example, probably already reserved. Scatter, those kind of things. Shintai, I believe, as well. And hopefully EOS Go. I'm not entirely sure. We'll have to talk to him more about that.
I believe he did, yeah.
Oh, thank you, Nathan, if you did.
Yep.
Let's go on to France embracing cryptocurrency. This happened last Wednesday. I believe it was the 21st. So It is fairly old news at this point. However, it's great to see that there are legal structures in place for entities, for DAX to sort of adopt. So France has been sort of leading the way in terms of figuring out how to create how to have this legal structure. So a lot of folks are using LLC or trying to use an organization, or they're doing this in Switzerland or Puerto Rico, wherever. But France is stepping up as well, and they're trying to sort of be at the forefront of this new technology revolution for blockchain. The minister said, "The finance is not our enemy. It is one of the assets of our economy. The blockchain will offer new opportunities to our startups, for example, with initial coin offerings that will allow them to raise funds through tokens or crypto assets. And it promises to create a network of trust without intermediaries and to offer increased traceability of transactions and overall to make the economy more efficient." He sounds like he's bought into blockchain, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
Of course, those are some of the key tenets to EOS itself: transparency, traceability, all those things, auditability.
There is an interesting meme out there about the G20 countries and their stance on crypto. I don't know if you saw it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I thought it was very interesting, and if we get a link to that, we'll put it in the forums, the EOS Go forums, if I come across that. So, yeah, France. Go France. I mean, we will not miss the blockchain revolution. That's what they said in the article. Somebody's quoted. I believe that was the French finance minister. So
it's great to see. Every time there is some kind of big news like this released, the entire cryptocurrency, I guess you could call it community, gets very excited about it. Of course, mainstream adoption is coming, this and that. It's a longer road than that. It's not just about a couple announcements. It's going to require that we educate and we work together as a blockchain community, and we make our blockchain as great as it can be. We build all the tools necessary so that people can adopt it. We have maybe cafes where people can drink coffee and they can pay with EOS, those kind of things, and collaborate on projects for EOS.
Such a cool project.
I know, right? A lot of things coming up. So make sure that we're all working together here, not against each other. It doesn't matter if it's another even if it's Ethereum or some other project as well. We're all trying to do the same thing in the end, which is to do what the French finance minister said. Let's make it more traceable and auditable and transparent and efficient.
Yeah.
So I thought that was great news. Also, let's move forward to the FinLab $100 million venture capitalist fund for EOS. Block One has teamed up with multiple venture capitalists. We've heard about Mike Novogratz and his Galaxy investments. They have $325 million dedicated towards projects specifically built on EOS. There's also the Tomorrow Ventures.
Tomorrow BC.
Tomorrow BC, yep. They have a certain number as well dedicated to EOS projects. And then FinLab is basically, they have mentioned that it is specifically for European-based projects. Read a little bit of here. The Block One, the developer behind the leading software, EOS.io and FinLab AG, which is one of the first and largest company builders and investors. They now have a new $100 million fund managed by FinLab that will make it strategic. They will make strategic investments throughout Europe in projects that utilize EOS.io open source software. And they're saying that you should send your emails into VC at Block One, VC at Block.one, I should say. And then I guess you could tag it for the FinLab group if you are based in Europe and you'd like to work with them specifically. There are other ways to reach out to FinLab. You can reach out to them on Twitter, probably through their website. So if you're interested, reach out to them for some funding. And if you have a relevant project that would make sense. I thought the best part, or one of the best parts, not to mention the huge amount of venture capitalist funding that's flowing into EOS, but also about how much they love DPoS, of all things, delegated proof of stake. They just talk about how it's an approach that's shown to vastly improve the speed and resiliency by which blockchain networks operate and scale. So they pretty much nailed it on the head. They clearly know what they're doing. And I think it's a great move for everyone in EOS.
Yeah, these VC funds are coming out everywhere. So all this means is there's going to be these amazing projects that are going to be deployed on an EOS chain. And what kind of projects can there be with a whole bunch of money? There's going to be really good projects out there. So the ideas are flowing, and I just can't wait to see what gets developed.
Hey, excuse me there. I'm trying to see if my sound is working okay. I know it's going up and down a little bit in volume. Let me know if there's something I can fix there, Bluejays. Let's see. So, and going forward to, let's talk about the EOS White Paper 2.0 for a moment. So the Block One put out a 2.0 version of the white paper, which was fairly old at this point. It had been released in June of 2017 previously, and so they put out a bunch of updates. And actually, Saeed of EOS.Cafe released a list of changes for everybody on Steam, which was very helpful. He basically broke down what had changed in there, and in bullet form, he talked about how the account names, the maximum length of an account name now is 12 characters, down from 32 characters. Basically, they're trying to make the account names more readable, more accessible for the average user. Other things like the account creator must stake for RAM until the new account stakes its own tokens for RAM. Removal of the ability for accounts to organize personal message handlers into named and nested groups. A lot of things. Basically, the worker proposal system is better fleshed out in this new white paper. They talk more about that. And governance as well, talking about the 15 block producers to do consensus, down from 17. So that number has dropped slightly as well. If you're looking for that white paper, we'll put the link up. What were your thoughts? What did you take away from the white paper itself there, Bluejays?
Yeah, I originally went through this, and the team did update the BFT DPoS and transactions proof of stake. So if you want to see what those are, we have videos that we released early on in January regarding both a Byzantine fault-tolerant DPoS and also transactions of proof of stake. So check out in the EOS Go channel for videos by Dan Larimer himself explaining what those mean in a whiteboard. That part struck out to me. There's a lot of just amazing information that has been released in this second iteration of the white paper. So I mean, there's just a lot there to put in. And the other thing that highlighted to me was inter-blockchain communication. I think this is going to be one of the major sort of features of this software, is its ability to communicate with other blockchains. Dan mentioned this as well, that in some of the Telegram channels and chats, that it has something to do with the headers, and then you're able to, the full history of the block headers gets communicated from chain to chain, and in the block header it tells what chain it is. So it's kind of like an identity for a chain, and as you go across different chains, you can communicate. All the technical information is there. It's just amazing the amount of features that are going into this EOS.io software from a blockchain perspective, and you would be well served to take a look at it.
Yeah, he talked about in the past, those headers are kind of like zip codes or area codes even. They're just talking about where the blockchain is coming from, the ID of the blockchain, and also the state of the blockchain. So like Bitcoin, for example, you have to go back and verify every single transaction that's ever happened on the chain in order to be up to date. But in the EOS headers, basically you have to verify that header, and therefore when you verify the header, you're verifying the previous state of the entire chain without having to go through all that work. And so EOS, of course, becomes a lot more efficient. And I think you're kind of nailing it on the head with inter-blockchain communication. Who needs a hard fork when you can just communicate with all the different chains, right?
Yeah, and something else that really spoke to me, Kevin, was the recovery from stolen keys. I think this is something like we've mentioned, like Dan mentioned in one of the videos. You put your private key on a table and you leave it there. Someone comes by and they take it. Just because they own it doesn't mean it's theirs. There is the facility to recover from any keys that have been stolen from you, and also make sure that the keys are owned by the person with the proper identity as well. That has been confirmed. So that's just something that is not being taken care of in other projects, and it's just something that, again, in EOS that we're going to have in there. For example, we're going to have Apple Secure Enclave to basically manage identity, and I don't know how this is going to work. I'm just excited to see it.
Yeah, so you could just basically take an old iPhone with Apple Enclave or your laptop, your MacBook, and you could use your fingerprint to log into your wallet. And of course, there will be dApps that integrate that, possibly Scattercan at some point, in order to unlock your funds. But it's a very advanced way to look at hardware wallets where you don't need a USB with special considerations. And Ledger, of course, had those issues. There was a hack. Some 15-year-old was able to hack into Ledger, into their code, and it was able to sweep funds if he wanted to. I think he actually did not do it. I don't remember the full details, but I believe he just exposed it. And so therefore, that is being fixed. So with something like Apple Secure Enclave, of course, we're just stepping up the security. I mean, you said at EOS, there's so much going on that is such an improvement over the current options. It's just very exciting to see what comes. And let's move on as well to, we're going to talk about the growing whale concerns. So a whale, let's go back and just mention that a whale is someone or a group that has a lot of money, a lot of wealth, and they have a lot of tokens because they bought those tokens and they want to own a large part of the network. There are growing concerns in the community about whales. There have been talk about a wealthy person having hands in multiple BPs or block producers. And basically a wealthy person could go and fund all these different block producers and then go about with his wealthy friends trying to get those block producers voted in, and then have a recurring source of revenue that cannot be displaced or replaced, rather. So if you have all these block producers and you say you own 5 of them or 10 of them and you're a wealthy guy, and you have all these block producers that are getting more tokens in that can just vote for themselves and keep themselves in, it becomes a growing concern. It becomes a snowball rolling down a hill, right? So there has been some concern about a possible foreign collusion effort going on. I won't mention which country or what's been going on, but there was an article that came out in that country, and it just talked about how that might make sense. And it was very concerning to a lot of the folks in the Block Pros channel. Did you follow along with this discussion?
I did. I saw a lot of the infographics. I saw 2 very interesting ones. One was I believe it was EOS 42 who had a infographic showing the relationships between a block producer or a set of block producers. And then there was also one by EOS SoCal that I believe Thomas referred to earlier on about the whales. So how many whales and who owns tokens and the amount, and they even broke down the different type of whales. So you can go all the way from I forget what the smallest whale was, but it was a small whale, and then there's levels of whales apparently, Kevin. So a big blue whale was at the bottom, and then you had like a tiny little baby whale at the top. But they pretty much broke it down to if you have more than 200,000 tokens, then you're a whale, and then you're going all the way down to somebody who's a big blue whale who owns 10 million tokens or something like that. So there's a lot of this talk, but I would like to say that arbitration is something different here than we think of having whale concerns in another chain. Arbitration is here to possibly deal with these type of things, and as well, Thomas brought it up earlier, if you have a certain stake in a chain and you're a whale, what is your incentive to be a bad actor here? So it's a good question. I'm not saying that it's there's a right or wrong, but we shouldn't assume that whales are going to be a bad actor. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I have a hard time wrapping my head around this myself. I have to wonder whether power is that intoxicating for a wealthy individual. If there is a wealthy individual and they believe in EOS as much as we all do, right, and they know that EOS may be the next backbone of the blockchain internet, perhaps they would like to have a large slice of that, and they'd like to own multiple block producers, and they're willing to do what it takes to get there. With arbitration, you're correct. However, I saw a comment by Sam Sapoznik the other day in the EOS governance channel, and he talked about who wants to be the arbitrator who decides against a whale in that situation, right?
Good point.
Who says, oh yeah, your 450 million tokens, boom, they're gone because you are doing bad stuff. Nobody wants that job. Let me tell you something, that's dangerous. So I don't entirely know how it'll work out. I guess it goes back to the community. Well, we have to decide how we would like to make a constitution. I mean, is there a way to do private arbitration where the arbitrators don't have to reveal their identities, and they can just decide on the facts without concern for their own safety? I think that's one solution. It would be nice if there was some process for us as a community to come together and make these decisions, these hard decisions that need kind of a formal answer. I'm wondering how that will look on EOS itself, and I'm wondering if there's another way we can do it now, really, and start making these decisions before EOS even launches.
Yeah.
And that way we can try and circumvent issues before they really crop up.
It's market forces, code, community. It all comes together. And the thing is those whales believe in the project enough to buy those tokens. So that's the market force. Then we have our community questioning, is this healthy? So that's also a healthy process as well. So it's all good, healthy stuff, in my opinion.
Sure, and it gets more meta too. I mean, who are we to decide as non-whales what those whales, what their intentions may be and whether they are valuable to the community or not? It's not up to us, right? We need to just accept the fact that there are going to be folks who are heavier than we are in the ecosystem, and so it's an arbitration. I think I'm looking forward to seeing more how that will turn out, and how arbitrators can be protected in scenarios where they have to make very difficult decisions. Sam mentioned the 3 arbitrators idea, and possibly being private. So, but we know that EOS itself is not a private chain. So these are more questions to be worked out. So let's leave it at that for now, I suppose, unless you have something else to add for the...
No.
Okay. Let's move forward. So that was
I think we beat that whale to death.
Thank you there, Blue Jays. The Dan Q&A. So Dan likes to come in every once in a while into Telegram, EOS General Chat, and he has been very active lately. And he talked about all sorts of things. Steam 2.0 is confirmed. This is the second or third time he has said that, yep, Steam 2.0 is coming. This time he actually talked about how there is a name already in place for the Steam 2.0, and it is not Steam 2.0, he verified, but he would not say what the name actually is. They are still waiting to release that information. So he also talked about next generation governance, next-gen governance after June to help mitigate the power of those whales.
Wow.
And he has also said that Block One will vote for block producer if it comes right down to it. We talked about this with Thomas earlier, but they will vote if they have to in order to mitigate the power of whales as well. So I guess we have some exciting things coming up that Dan is alluding to, but we don't know. And also the dApps from Block One are not coming at launch, but they will come later in the year. And they are currently in development as well, from what is being said. So what do you think there, Blue Jays? What are your takeaways from Dan's bombs?
dApp's not coming at launch, but later. So I figure, I mean, it would seem sensible to have dApps to be coming out this year, and I just can't wait to see what they are. Steam 2.0 seems confirmed, and I think that would be a good possibility, having mentioned already. I'm just excited to see what that would look like, and also this EOS wallet will work better than a Steam wallet, and the Steam wallet is pretty cool. I mean, you can have so many different keys and send out. The Steam wallet, if you haven't used it, has a lot of functionality to it, and for EOS to work better than that, it says a lot. And Dan always learns something new from his previous projects and implements it in new projects. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that has entail.
Sure. And what do you think the new name for the Steam 2.0 will be?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to even guess, right? I mean, so he put out, it was a few weeks ago in Telegram when he was doing another Q&A and mentioned Steam 2.0, and he actually asked community members for their thoughts on what the name should be.
What about #delete Facebook?
Well, that's an interesting name. #deletefacebook.com. It might get some initial traction, that's for sure. There's a lot of anger surrounding Facebook right now.
Yeah.
Should we talk about that? I mean,
so I guess that's one of the things that we had done with our infographic, is we showed that data was being sold, and that's kind of what ended up happening, right? In this scandal or whatever it is that happened, and now that this #DeleteFacebook is out there, this is something that, do you know that your data is being sold?
You're right. Yeah, and that's the thing with blockchain is it isn't a completely open book with blockchain. So I guess all of the advantages that the company that took that either stole the data or bought it, or some combination of both, they were able to use that data to make psychographic analysis and marketing and target certain groups and be able to sway opinion. Now with blockchain, everything is already out there. So I guess supposedly these companies that have these tools would already have the data available anyway, right? So they could just make more powerful psychographic marketing.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that there will be transparent smart contracts and transparent data on the blockchain. So whatever's done with it, it's going to be known. And it'll also be very protected as well too. If you don't want it or cryptographically, it can be protected as well too. So there's other options.
And that's the beautiful thing about it. Like you said, everything's seen on blockchain, so we can see who's been pulling what data, and we can hopefully connect all the dots. That's again up to the community to be able to see what's been going on, and which company is possibly trying to manipulate data and voter opinion in situations like this Facebook issue where Cambridge Analytica was caught trying to do these things. So
what's up with the block producer report, Kevin?
Well, so coming out Wednesday, we have the checkmark criteria. This will be the first time that we're doing checkmark criteria. We had initially released this back. We had released this back in early March, even late February, about how we'd like block producers to sort of put everything out there for the community, whether it's tech specs and budget plan, community projects, scaling, all that kind of stuff, and also a public ID to show who you are as a company, where you're based out of. All that information, we're asking for it on the Steam blockchain just because it's the best way to provide a non-tamperable way. It's basically the best blockchain currently to put this kind of information out there where everybody can audit it, everybody can see what's happened to the data, right? So we're trying to use the power of Steam blockchain to have help the community vet the block producers themselves. So all we're asking for, and a lot of block producers are familiar with this already, but the rest of the community may not be quite as familiar. We are just asking for these block producers to submit certain pieces of information. As long as they say it fits the criteria, like, hey, this is my scaling plan, it's on Steam. So we give them the check mark for it, right? And it's up to the community to go in there and look at it and say, well, it was just a sentence. It wasn't actually a scaling plan, right? So there is still some work on the community's part to actually vet these producers, because we're just basically acting as that information clearinghouse to help get the information out there.
Yeah.
So that'll come out March 28th. That's this Wednesday. And block producers, you can still submit your info now for about 22 more hours. The deadline is 23:59 Universal Time. That's UTC tomorrow. That's Tuesday, the 27th is the deadline. So submit your links to us, please. Send them in. Put them on the forums. Email them to admin@eosgo.io if you would like to get us the links to earn the check marks so that you look better on the report to the voters. So let's move on to meetups there, Blue Jays. What do you have?
So, okay, well let's do a nice little video here of Blockgenic in Seattle, and we'll come back and actually let's read off some of the ones that we've already previously read off that are coming up. So we have EOS Atlanta this Thursday, April 5th. I believe Thomas Cox will be there. Sans goatee. Then we will have on April 6th, Friday, we'll have one in Hong Kong. And then Thomas Cox comes, part of his same tour, I believe, or a different tour he's doing. He'll be in Detroit. And then there's the Shenzhen video that we had last week, March 24th. And, that's already passed. Yeah, sorry, guys.
That was the 24th, yeah.
Yeah. And then a Bangkok one, which I'm not sure about. So we'll check on that one.
And really the biggest one that people should know about is the Hong Kong meetup. And EOS is actually EOS.io, or Block One. They have released a YouTube video for a live stream link. It sounds like it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
We already know Ian Grigg is speaking. There may be other confirmed guests as well. And it's we also know that there may be some news coming from Block One about what's coming up for the ecosystem. So
this reminds me of the Seoul meetup.
The Seoul meetup in January. It sounds like it's going to be a similar type of vibe and experience and situation. So that is coming up the 6th of April, I believe. What is that?
Friday.
It looks a Friday. Yep. And that's Hong Kong. So it will be Thursday if you're in the United States or on the East Coast. Of course. Yeah. So anyway, take it away with the Blockgenic meetup video we have from Seattle.
Okay.
Hello everyone, my name is Yannick and I'm part of Blockgenic. In this video I'm going to give you an introduction to our meetup group and to our upcoming meetup on March 29th. So we created this meetup group because we wanted to bring together all cryptocurrency enthusiasts and all EOS enthusiasts in and near Seattle and basically educate them on EOS. And we also wanted to do something for people who are already familiar with EOS, as we have people from various dApp projects speaking at our event. So our first meetup will be hosted on March 29th, and some of the speakers at our first meetup include David Moss from TrueBlock. We have Eugene Luskin from EOS Salt Lake City. We will have a speaker from Arbitrator, and we also have Rahul Sonat from Tesloop. We plan on live streaming the whole event, and we also plan on uploading the video of the event after. So we plan on sharing the links to that on our Twitter and on our meetup page. So if you want to stay updated and see the live stream, see the videos, you should definitely follow us on Twitter at Blockgenic, or you should join our meetup group at EOS Seattle. And that's basically it. So we hope to see you soon, and thank you all for listening.
Hello, it's Yannick from EOS Seattle from Blockgenic.
Blockgenic, and I believe they're a block producer candidate based out of Seattle, the United States, in Washington State. And did he say David Moss is coming to that meetup?
Wow. I didn't catch that, but probably we'll need to confirm that.
He said David Moss of a different company. Maybe, I don't know how all that's working out at the moment. But anyway, it looks like Thomas Cox is also on the roster there as well. So that seems to be a powerhouse meetup from what I'm seeing. It's Thursday, March 29th. let's see. Yeah, presenters David Moss with TrueBlock, and Eugene with EOS Salt Lake City, Everpedia. So Thomas Cox is actually, I'm looking at their meetup page right now, and he is listed on the members list, and looks like he is not going to be speaking at this particular meetup. He may in the future. He is based fairly close to that area. So nonetheless, there is David Moss from TrueBlock, which may not be the same David Moss we know from Block One. But then again, Thomas Cox is now blockchain governance expert. So we don't know exactly what could be happening here. What are your thoughts there, Bluejays?
I think these meetups are so cool. Like EOS.Cafe mentioned, is bringing it to the real world. And when you go to a meetup, you just meet just people that you would never have thought you would have met. Troy was a farmer, and he met up with a couple guys who can launch Linux clusters, right? So that's just cool.
I agree. Yeah, it is such an invigorating experience. You can't capture the enthusiasm through text on Telegram. You can't talk to people and hear their backgrounds and quite as much. So it's a fun experience. If you have not been to a meetup, please make sure you get to one. And we'll continue to try and find all the meetups that are happening for EOS. And if you are an organizer or you're trying to help or you just know about one, please let us know on the forums or on Telegram or email us, whichever the case is, because we'd like to help get the word out about meetups always.
Well, let's wrap it up, Kevin. That was a great show.
Yeah, I had a good time as always. What are your final thoughts there, Bluejays? Thoughts of the week?
I'm just interested in seeing that EOSIndex and these projects and all of these different parts coming together as a whole. The number, it's almost mimicking, it is a free market, and we're going to see projects come in, be successful. We're going to see projects come in and fade away. And I think having an index of them, also having the supporter, the right features, make it this awesome ecology in this free market that everything is just blossoming right now. And this is literally, I believe, 2 months until the launch, right? So this is awesome.
Yeah, things continue to ramp up as always. Every week we have some new stuff to talk about, and that will always be the case, I believe. It looks like when it comes to not just the dApps that come in, but also any kind of arbitration issue that might be happening. There will be a lot of cases going on at any given time. There will always be endless news, and we'll be reporting on all of it. Of course, that's what we do, not just here, but also in the Telegram summaries and in the news updates and everything else we'll try to put out to help the community stay up to date with everything. So when it comes to my thoughts, pretty much the same thing. I think block producers are going to start appearing more frequently soon, and the level of block producer, the quality of the block producer candidate, the companies that will come out, I think will be powerful. Mm-hmm. That's just a guesstimate right now, but somehow I'm getting that feeling that it's going to get, the competition will increase. So this is a collaboration. You have these block producers that need to work together, provide each other with the tools and the advice and so on and so forth. You heard Thomas talk about that as well, how they can't just be this little clique. Mm-hmm. There needs to be a welcoming sort of vibe. However, of course, to some degree that will be inevitable when you have a bunch of people, like he said, that have known each other for a while, they're friends, and they work together, they've accomplished a lot together. They're naturally going to sort of gravitate towards each other. However, having a powerful candidate comes in that has a lot of money and a lot of experience and can bring a lot to the ecosystem, they're going to be tough to beat. So that's what we'll continue to see as EOS grows. As the dApps start to build up and the population of those dApps starts to increase, yep. And then the block producers have more money and the token, all that kind of stuff. It's just, as we know, it is a snowball going down a hill, but also up to the moon, all that stuff. So we don't talk about price here very often, but it's fun to every once in a while joke about it. So.
Yeah.
All right. So what should we do? Where should we send folks? The forums, of course, if you'd like to discuss EOS and with people who love EOS, and not only that, but are passionate about where it's going. We have some brilliant people on the forums that talk about amazing things. The governance part, the governance forum is very active. The first article of the Constitution draft is on the governance forum. Thomas Cox wrote it himself and put it up there, and more is to come as well. So if you'd like to get involved in that, go to the forums.
Also, so that's forums.eosgo.io. We also have our YouTube channel, which you can click subscribe to right now, and also our Twitter handle. at go_EOS. And then we also have our community updates channel on Telegram, which we blast important updates too. So that's how you can keep in contact with us.
Yeah, the Telegram channel is very powerful because it is only announcements. So it's only the important stuff that comes through on that channel. You don't have to try and scroll back up through all sorts of stuff. We just put out the relevant information that is important so you can keep up to date more easily. So we are going to head out. We'll see you guys next week. We have some great guests next week as well, and we're looking forward to seeing you there.
Go EOS.
Thank you, and go EOS.
Good night, everybody.